Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the second session of Diploma in Retail Banking program. Where we spoke about some interesting topics last week, and I can see about 18 participants online. So, we shall wait for about another 5 minutes time before we begin for others to log in. In the meantime, until we begin the program, I would like people who are already logged in, if they wants to discuss anything, we can talk about that right now. So I hope all of you had time to go through what we discussed last time, more of the banking channels that we are currently using in the Sri Lankan context. We spoke about more of Sri Lankan context, where our existing banking network and financial institutions that are currently operating in Sri Lanka, what are their distribution channels, physical and offline, online channels, what are the technologies that are associated with, especially with the retail banking segment, and how these technologies have evolved from basic banking needs to support customer requirements, especially the growing customer requirements. And today, our main topic is about digital banking, one of my favorite areas, and especially when it's come to in an era that everything is going digital, and I'm sure it's going to be quite an interesting discussion that we have to do. And like I mentioned last time, I hope everyone will contribute, not just as listeners, but as active participant to this forum, because what the topic that we are going to talk about today is it's nothing. There's no theory or anything as such. It's about how we are going to create the future of the banking, and what, as young entrants to the banking industry, how you could contribute your creativity or your passion into bring something out of the box, create, especially in a digital era like this. So let's wait for about another 2 minutes for others to join in, and we can begin the session. So any questions that you all want to talk about our last session? So I asked you all to do some independent research on the technologies that are associated with, especially the mobile banking apps, which are currently being presented in the market. So, has anyone of you have an idea what, or anyone has a interesting thing to talk about?
Yeah, sir, regarding now, how is license given by the central bank for the digital marketing? That means normally that any bank can apply for the digital banking, or any license?
For digital banking itself, it's like this, Srishant, and Thank you for bringing up that question. It's a very valid question, actually. Now, we are actually going to talk about in our today's session. But if you look at Sri Lankan context, it has to have Sri Lankan Central Bank has to approve the concept in general. What's the financial inclusivity that they are going to bring in with the digital banking app? So it can be a completely different solution that are presently in the market, but I think I can give you a detailed answer in our following slides to come in, so that we will have a better understanding of the license. But in Sri Lankan context, yes, you need to get a licensee from central bank.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
So Srishan, any interesting research or information that you could?
Yeah, I go through that some website and go through that other banks' websites.
Right.
So I observe many banks having various kind of solutions.
Right.
The problem now, normally we have one platform for internet banking and mobile banking, but some are having more than some normal way. Especially in Sampath having some the QR machines, the QR ATM machines. So that kind of thing, I think in the future, I think we can see in other banks also, no, sir?
Yeah, if you look at payment apps like UPay, FreeMe, there are quite a few now. QPay, Q Plus from Commercial Bank, and Genie from Dialogue. So those kind of apps have actually evolved within the last 2 to 3 years from basic banking needs to a complete different financial inclusivity app, where you can basically connect multi banks, savings account or cards, and you can pay through uh, different mediums. Like either it can be on a in-app pay, or you can do some QR transactions. All of these developments are simply to give customer convenience and make these transactional banking kind of a easy thing to do. So people who are doing such innovations and bringing that extra convenience to the app has a greater chance of making it large and making it more accessible to the wide audience. So since we have
Recently, that fintech came to that industry, no, that financial companies, so the fintech now they are doing
fintech is
big
the
role
next,
there, no?
fintech is the next big thing in the world. So that's something that we are going to talk about today, Rachna. Because if you the last week what we spoke about more Sri Lankan context and where the existing technologies that are currently in place at the moment. But if you look at our digital banking, the overall customer expectations are completely changing, especially after the after the COVID pandemic, where people uh, were unable to go out, but they had to do their basic requirements. So banking is one of their basic requirement. If you look at like the food and medications, similarly, the banking also has become one of the basic requirement of customers, simply because we are all in a connected environment. So let's move on to our presentations, and if you all have anything to discuss, please please do so in the meet. So let me go to our presentation, and can all of you see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So our today's topic is about the digital banking. Before we move into digital banking, can someone tell me what exactly digital means? Because we need to get a perfect idea of what digital means. And if you look at today, I think this is the most commonly used word in everything that we do It can be either, it doesn't relate to banking itself, either healthcare to the governments to food industry. If you look at any industry, one of the common word that they are using is digital, going digital, digitalization. Why it is so important? Because it is the next big thing, or rather it is the thing at the moment. And can someone tell me what exactly digital means? What is your idea about going digital or digitalization means? Anyone got an answer? It's okay. It can be there is nothing called right or wrong answer. It's all about sharing ideas. So please do share your thoughts about digital.
It's a web-based solution for that online.
Solution for online. What online?
For any transactions, that mean between some two people having some many transactions. So that's one came through that web base.
Okay. If I say that, okay, that is correct, but that is more of enabling. That is what digital actually does. That's the core idea of what digital is. But if you really look at why do we need to go digital? Why people are so crazy? I would like to use that word, crazy. Why do you think people are so crazy about digital? Okay, let me tell you the definition of digital. Okay, if you look at in software engineers perspective or IT personnel perspective, now digital describes electronic technology that generates, stores and processes data in terms of two states. Now this is something a software engineer or IT personnel would really understand. If he asks, I'm sure there will be some students in this forum who are into the IT field or digital sites who would definitely understand what I'm talking about. So there's positives and non-positives. What does it mean is, now if you look at an email, now those days we used to communicate it through physical letter formats, but eventually when the emails were introduced, it became a commonly used factor in the market, in the entire world. But how does this information transferred from one person to another person through a device is through positives and non-positives. So positives is expressed or represented by the number 1 and non-positives are number 0. So everything that you transmitted, it may be a picture or it may be a WhatsApp message or it may be any form of data that is transmitted from one device to another device is through this number format. So there's only number 1s and 0s. So that's called coding. So that sort of that is the technical definition of what digital means. But I like to go beyond that. Why do we need digital? What exactly digital means now? If you all can contribute to the conversation, so it will be a better way for us to understand the entire concept of digital, because that is really important for our next few minutes, especially to understand digital banking. So thank you for giving me that. I'm sorry, I can't see your names or anything when we go in this PowerPoint presentation mode, but others, what are your thoughts about digital?
It's a paperless banking.
Yes, that is true, but
Availability of all banking activities are online.
About banking, forget about, just for a moment, forget about banking. Let's not talk about what forget about that you are working in a bank or we are learning about digital banking. But digital is, like I mentioned, it is applicable to any industry or almost every activity as humans we do. Digital is becoming a key component. So
It's
think about
something, yeah, it's something real time and convenient facility.
yes, true. If you could add more, why we need to do digital? What does actually digital does? Why I am emphasizing more on this word digital is because once
Increasing efficiency.
that's a good answer. And Nilupama, that one, the previous one also is kind of gives a
Digital has replaced most paperworks and giving time kind of
Right.
things. It has replaced.
Right.
To
Okay.
get the customers attraction.
Yes. Okay. But I have a simple answer for that. I have a 2 words answer for what digital means.
Easy to handle.
Yes. It's about creating access. Okay. Digital is about creating access. What does it mean is now just imagine now we are I as a student, I've never been to online class until the last couple of years. But digital actually created an opportunity for me to teach you all through online. So that what means because we can't go out, especially in this pandemic situations, and you all can't travel in public transport or whatever the means. But digital created access to everyone to survive, especially in situations like this. If you look at banking, just imagine we were under a lockdown for let's say almost about 1 year, but we somehow managed to access our basic banking needs to digital platforms, and that was specially creating through accesses. Similarly, if you want to learn something about let's say cooking, you can simply go to a YouTube and learn about it. That YouTube has created access a content creator and a content listener or the content receiver through a digital medium for them to learn. So the simple meaning of digital is creating access. So you and we as bankers, so if we are talking about digital, so if we want to move with digital evolving world, we need to think about how we create access. So these two words, creating access, has a vast area to cover. So when you are creating something, especially to a digital environment, so it has to have a relevance. It has to have an updated version. So you can't create something which was outdated about 2 months ago. There's no point creating that, and you can't create something which is not suitable for the current market, because if you create something for the future market, let's say some people in about you create something for another 2 years to come in, because there's no use in the market. And when you create access, so access is very important. That's simply because how you give that accessibility. So it can be either internet form or it can be through the data form. Either it is through a mobile phone, either it is through a desktop. It's how you create that access. So the simple meaning of digital is creating access. So keep in mind these two words because it is going to be very vital and very important, especially in your banking careers, in every format, in every form that you do. So I hope you got an understanding. Anyone has any different thought about, or anyone wants to share anything? Hello? Can someone give me another example of who has done significant change through a digital form? I'm sure all of you, everyone in this forum are using digital tools by which someone has access, or someone or a group of people have created access. Let's talk about Facebook. Now, Facebook is a classic example of how they created access for people to get connected to each other. So they started as a small entity where you make people's connected to each other. But today it has evolved to one of the largest organization in the world. And WhatsApp, YouTube, these are some of the fascinating products that I have created through digital means. I hope you got a clear understanding of what digital means. Moving on.
Why, sir, excuse me, why it's positive in one and zero in negative? So that the YouTube, like WhatsApp, so normally not like that data. So why it's related to the data side?
So every message, so these are called codes actually. So these codes are stored in ones and zeros. So every document or every data that is transmitted to digital forms are created through ones and zeros. It could be a picture, it could be a video, it could be a document, it could be a letter, anything that is the transmission happens through ones and zeros. So there is one party encoding it, the other party is decoding it. Hope you got my feedback on that.
Okay, so that means that the two parties that maybe in one coding and other parties
Decoding,
receiving
yes.
decoding. That's the
Yes.
case 1 and 0.
It's not simple as what we spoke at the moment, but it's a very complex operation. So if you want to know more about this, you can get into this coding aspect. So it will give you better understanding of how these ones and zeros are working. But just for our learning purposes, I just put it here as the definition of what digital means in terms of IT perspective. But the real meaning of digital is creating access. So that's something we need to keep in mind especially when you are doing something digital. Okay, moving on. So since our topic is about digital banking, so it's very important for us to understand the evolution of digital banking. Can someone tell me when this actually happened? What was the first form of digital banking?
ATM?
Yes, ATM is part of. But before that,
Internet banking and mobile banking.
Fax?
internet is the core foundation of digital banking. So when it was found in 1980s, computer mainframes assumed a central role in banking, and following the rise of internet in the 90s, the first wave of online banking such as ING Direct and First Direct were introduced to the market. So with the launch of internet in the market, it opened up the doors to a complete new era of banking. So ING Direct and the First Direct were the two banks that started going online, and that was the beginning of, I would say, the modern day of digital banking. Following that, the proliferation of smartphones enabled a new type of bank to emerge in the later part of the last decades. So digital bank, new entities such as Fido Bank and Simple offered modern banking proposition tailored to the smartphone and digital world. What does it mean is now, once the internet banking was introduced to the market, we are operating in a very connected world, like I mentioned a few times earlier. Internet is evolving. Similarly, the mobile penetration, the mobile smartphone is also becoming, it has already become the thing in the market. So we as bankers, or neither the banks, cannot work in isolated areas. So if the market is evolving into something new, banks also should look at the opportunities that are arising in such segments. So similarly, the Fido Bank and Simple, they identify a core opportunity in the smartphone segment. So they started offering the mobile banking to the through smartphones to the digital world. So these are the two incidents where the market was started open to a complete different new era of digital banking. And if you look at digital banking, so there are kind of few areas which are really important to understand how the digital bank is going to place in the market. Now, can someone tell me an example of the Sri Lankan context? What is the Sri Lankan concept of digital banking? What do you think as the growing, where does it start actually? Now we spoke about the world context of how the digital evolution began in the banking industry. Now, so when was it happening in Sri Lanka? It happened in Sri Lanka at the same time, because if you look at world as one, it can be a country where it's in part of some Africa where name of the country doesn't seem to be very familiar with the world. But if they start something unique and creative in the market, it spreads like a virus in the world. Similarly, what we experience now as coronavirus, something new, or rather something very creative in the market, can spread throughout the world within a matter of seconds. So similarly, when mobile banking apps, the Fido and Simple, were offered in the other countries, multinational banks like HSBC, Standard Chartered, they knew there's something new happening in the market. So once they developed a solution, because of their penetration around the world, they simply transferred that innovation to the entire banking network that they have. So similarly, these innovations fly within seconds. So there are few important things for us to understand when it comes to digital banking. So I have categorized few. So number one is it should be a customer focused vision. So today we are not going to talk about what are the mobile banking apps that are in the market, or what are the features, or what are the services that they are going to offer, and because they are already in the market. You may be using most of these services by now. So there is no point talking about such technologies that are existing in the market and which you are currently using, because there is no future for them tomorrow. So if you are as young bankers coming into the market and trying to create a better world for the better banking experience for the customer and the world, so you need to always look at what is going to happen in the future. So every time you do something, so like I mentioned at the beginning, so creating access is digital. So when you are creating access, your number one point should be customer focused vision. Your number one is your customer. So you need to have you need to create something that enables customer to have a very simplified service factor. So moving in. So if you all remember, during 2007 to 2010-11, there was a major financial crisis in the world. So what does happen during that period was the entire banking industry in the world collapsed. So most of the banks were unable to recover their loans, and I don't need to tell you because some of you may have already experienced that. So banks were struggling to cope up with the greater financial crisis. So what they did was they were looking at alternatives. They were looking at reducing cost. So when it comes to reducing cost, there could be several areas that number one is they look at how they can reduce their overhead cost. How can they reduce their operational costs? So when they look at such alternative solutions, the main area that they looked at is how best we can go into a customer and serve them with better banking experience through digital channels, like through digital native origins, and give them improved customer propositions at lower cost, enhancing financial inclusions. So the keywords that I have highlighted here is giving a better banking experience at lower cost, enhancing financial inclusions. What does it mean is now, let's look at a situation like this. There can be a customer who are walking into a branch almost every day to withdraw some money and go and give it to another person. Maybe it's for salaries purposes, or he could be a businessman who just want to do his financial transaction with third parties, and it could be any reason, but he walks into the branch almost every day just to withdraw money and go out. Just imagine the time consumed for both parties. It can be either from customer's point of view and from the branch point of view. So when he walks into the branch, so he has to fill a deposit slip. He has to wait at the counter and do all the cash counting. I mean, you guys know better than me what the branch experience is for the customer. But these two digital mediums, the same requirement can be done in a completely different manner with lower cost and enhancing the financial inclusion. What does it enhancing the financial inclusion means? So he can transfer money from his account to another party's account, and similarly he can receive the money in the same manner. So when you look at things like that, the technologies have built especially by focusing the customer, keeping him in middle. And since 2015, there's a classic story to this. Number of digital banks across the globe have significantly grown. Can someone tell me how does this happen? What was the main cause behind banks to come into the digital market at such speed? What was the main reason?
Introducing Visa.
Sorry?
Introducing Visa.
No, Visa has been in the industry. Visa is about a 30-year-old, more than 30 years old. But there's one thing which all of you are experiencing at the moment. I'm sure all of you are holding it at the moment.
Smartphone.
Yes. Smartphone, introduction of smartphone to the world is the game changer of digital banks. Digital banking experience for customer. Because if you look at mobile phone manufacturers like Apple to Samsung to Nokia to Motorola to whatnot, they created a platform where all of these industries can be embedded into one single device, which is very mobile, which you can take it to anywhere, and people who were going who are using smartphones, the way of their transacting, the way of their living, the way of their thinking became completely different to what it was about 10 years ago. And if the institutions to survive, they had to cope up with that technology advancement. If not, they can be withdrawn from the market. That's what actually happened to Kodak. Now, Kodak was the #1 leader in the photography for so many years, and they didn't look at what is coming in as a new technology developments in the market. People were changing, but Kodak was not ready to do that change, and eventually they had to withdraw from the market. Similarly, the banks who saw this new era, they saw this dawn of new era, and they quickly adapted, and with that, the market was actually ready to take up that new technology. And similarly, if you look at now, Sri Lanka is a perfect example. Now, like I mentioned the last time also, during COVID lockdowns, actually the most of the banks were ready with the technology. Just that our some number of customer segments, they were not believing in such technology, especially with our elder generation. They were not ready to take up these new developments, but the younger generations who are internet savvy and mobile savvy, they were already using the technology. But once the opportunity was created for elder customers, they saw what convenient it could brought into their hands. And similarly, during the last two years, the mobile penetration, mobile digital banking penetration grew by more than 200% in the world. That is across the globe. And if you look at this trend, it is not exclusive in now. If you look at such technologies that are coming into the market, we see, okay, if there's new technology coming into the market, we see, okay, it is coming from either America or Europe or Western countries. But this is a global phenomenon, and it is not limited to a Western or the Eastern. It is actually a global phenomenon, and it emerging especially in regions like Asia, Africa, and Middle East, simply because the consumer behaviors are completely different to each other, but adaptation to the technology is worldwide. And when there's something new, and when it is in your form, when it is in matter of your convenience, your adaptation levels are very much higher. And if you look at today, there are now more than 400 independent digital banks, combined of more than 500 million customer base. So just imagine within the last 5 to 6 years, the growth rate of digital banks in the world. Today, if you look at even Sri Lanka can be a worldwide bank. We don't need to have a branch in other countries, or we don't need to go and operate in their language, and we don't need to go and recruit staff in those countries. If the existing technologies and the solutions that our country has produced over the last few years, we simply have to replicate it in other formats. Thereby our country can become a global banking giant if we identify the right product to the right market. So being customer focused is very important when it comes to digital banking. Another interesting fact, if you look at digital banking, especially in emerging regions like China, India, Brazil, their adaptation levels are significantly high. If you look at China, their consumers banking with digital bank is 93%, and India it's 50%. Brazil it's 30%, 32%. If you look at some countries, even in other Europe or Western countries, these percentages are very much low. One of the major success for Chinese economic development is their adaptation to the digital technologies and platforms. If you all remember, I mentioned about our cash usage in country and the cost of cash printing to our GDP. Now just imagine Sri Lanka is having a 3% of spending 3% of our GDP on cash printing. Just imagine what does it what would be the percentage in countries like China and India if they were to be a fully cash oriented country. They don't grow their economy will never grow. That's why they identified these digital technologies simply to, number one, create new access for customers and give them a better experience through digital forms. And the other form is other key point is reducing the cost. So when you do digital transactions, your cost is significantly low. So it's very important that when you are trying to do something new for the market, because I'm not going to talk about any technologies or anything that are present at the moment. We'll be talking more about the future. So you guys as new young bankers to the nation, you have to always think about how best you could what are the best solutions that you could bring into the market. So number one point that you have to think is you have to be very customer focused. Your vision should be very customer focused. Continuing on, if you look at China is the home to the world's largest digital banks. There is a bank called V Bank. Can someone tell me what is it? Does anyone know about the V Bank? Do you know the story of V Bank? Has anyone here or have heard about WeChat? So guys, I like to have a conversation with you because number one is it's very boring for me to just look at a screen and talk. It's very I'm just in a very large isolated room and talking to a camera and a microphone. I don't get to see any of you. I haven't seen any of you, but I would prefer that you all join this conversation because it's very important that we because what I'm sharing is the knowledge that I have gained, but there could be a brilliant ideas coming out from you all that
Sir, is it a new bank? Is the world digital bank, right? Largest digital bank in Brazil.
sorry.
Is it the V bank or a new bank in the large digital bank in the world?
No. Yeah, Neobank is the world's largest digital bank. But I specifically mentioned VBank here for some particular reason. So what I asked was, anyone knows the story about the VBank? I'm sure all of you must have heard the chat app called WeChat, which is the largest chat app in China, and how they actually entered into the market, especially being a chat app provider to a banking community. What happened was now in 2015, CEO of WeChat, they especially during their Chinese New Year, he personally himself used to give a gift to all of his employees. It's called red packet, and he gives this red packet to all of his employees by himself. And during the Chinese New Year, he saw people were queuing up for hours and hours just to get this because it has become their tradition. So while he was giving this red packet to the employees, he saw two issues. Number one is most of his employees are queuing outside the building for so many hours, and it was not a pleasant experience for them to get a gift, even if it's their New Year. And from himself too, he had to wait for so many hours and days to just to give it to the same gift to all of his employees. So he was giving this challenge to their management team, asking them to find a solution. So similarly, when they saw this issue or rather problem that the CEO had to face, so they were looking at different options or different means of giving this addressing to the issue. And they came up with the brilliant idea of QR payments. That's how the QR payments actually introduced to the market. And similarly, it spreads like a virus in Chinese market where people saw conveniences in it, and people were ready to accept that technology development because the Chinese mobile penetration is so high. And eventually they were so big, and it is much bigger than Bank of China, where they were simply able to connect through different means of technology developments and became a VBank. So why I specifically mentioned VBank, because today we may be using either PickMe or some technology apps in the market, but tomorrow it can simply turn around to another completely different means of weighing of serving customers. Another classic example, that a Sri Lankan example that I wanted to share with you all is the evolution of PickMe. Now, PickMe, we all know Uber is a global product, but a few Sri Lankans actually got together and they saw an opportunity in the Sri Lankan market, and they introduced the PickMe app. Similarly, they were growing at a good rate, but when the pandemic hit us, PickMe couldn't survive because the entire country was locked down. But they saw an opportunity to do something with the grocery markets, and shops were closed, but people were still needed to get their basics done. So PickMe had the technology, PickMe had the driver network, and PickMe had the customer base. So they simply tweaked their application to a uh, different mode, and they introduced PickMe Market. But Uber, being the world's largest taxi provider, they were not ready with that solution. They actually came into the market after PickMe was introduced, PickMe Market. So we don't know, tomorrow it can be another classic example is Helakuru. Now I'm sure people, and they are advertising heavily these days on all sort of social medias to the other mediums of communications, where Helakuru was actually introduced as a single font provider to the market. But today they have HelaPay, they have news, they have doctor appointments. You can pay all of your bills to doctor appointments to everything. So you guys as new young bankers, you need to watch out not only for other banks or other financial institutions as your competition. You need to look at your entire 360, where are the next challenge or the threat or the opportunity could come in. So if you look at like that, you can simply create novel products in the market. And neobanks cover many target client segments, product and services, and geographical markets. So like I mentioned in previously, being digital bank, you don't have to stick into a one proposition. So you can identify your client segments. You can identify what product that you are going to, the services that you are going to. You can operate in different markets, geographical market. You don't have to specifically be in one particular segment or one particular country. If you have the global opportunity to expand. And the other important fact is now these neobanks, the digital banks, are primarily focused on retail consumers and small business clients. What does it mean is because these are now the requirement of a retail customer can be served even with a simple mobile banking app. If you want to transfer funds, you can create that facility in your app, and you can enable that service to the customer. So that's why the Sri Lankan apps like UPay, FreeMe, what and so forth, they have got access through JustPay, and they have created that seamless experience to the customer. And things like card payments, foreign currency exchange, trading, savings, and lending. Now, I'm sure most of you have seen some of the apps that are in the market. They simply do lending only. You can download the app and do a simple 5,000 rupee. You can borrow a 5,000 rupee loan, and you can pay it in installments. And after a while, they will increase your loan amount. And you see what I'm meaning is it doesn't have to be a full set of the banking needs that are the major banks that are providing you. You can find the credit in India. They are simply focusing on credit card payments only. That's the beauty of digital banking. And this is the same point, because they start with MVPs, the minimum viable product. So if you want to do something in digital banking, you need to find that core business what you are going to do. So you don't need to do everything like Helakuru. You can identify one segment and go global with that, and eventually you can grow globally over time. So that's basically about how you could bring digital being very customer focused. So anything you want to discuss? Anything, any areas that you want to clear out? Before we move into our number 2 point. Okay. Number 2 is, especially in digital banking, our operating models are completely different to the traditional banking methods. Number 1 is, digital banking is a highly versatile and fast evolving market. There's a rapid pace of technology innovation coupled with continued growth of smartphone penetration. The classic example that I took previously, if you are not innovative, and if you are not creative, even the technologies that you have built today can be no use of tomorrow. So you have to always be innovative in what you are creating. So you have to always identify customers' requirements and where they are moving, because it can be a completely different industry that are building something relevant to them, but it can have a huge impact on consumers' behavior, and that can reflect either in a positive or negative manner to what you are doing. If I may elaborate it in a simple manner, now let's say if Facebook is developing face recognition technology, and there is no use of passwords or anything that you need to inculcate with when you are using Facebook. But if banking industry doesn't gel with that technology development, maybe in few years down the line, because people cannot keep remember their password, the thousands of passwords. So if we don't introduce that face recognition technology or biometric technologies, people who are giving will survive, but others will definitely washed away from the market. So it's very important that you need to be in the technology market. As and when it's changing, you have to adapt your technologies or the services accordingly. And the other factor is customer behavior. Like I mentioned, it can be a completely different industry that is bringing new technologies to the market. So consumers are changing accordingly. Now, when WeChat introduced QR pay to the market, people were quickly adapted to that technology, and people who were doing traditional transactions, they quickly moved to this QR transaction, and who were making a lot of money and who were doing well with the normal ways of transactioning, they couldn't survive. So consumer behavior is another important factor. And emergence of open banking regulation as a means of fostering competition. Now, if you look at banks, now especially in Sri Lanka, most of the banks are operating individually. So they have their own KYC systems. They have their operating systems are completely in-house, so they are not sharing. So unless the banks started using open banking as a platform, customers may not be using such products in the market. Especially now, if you look at Google and Microsoft, Facebook, they are, you can use your Google email and password in other sites as well, because they are using their connective technologies. An emerging market, the existing of underbanked population creates opportunities to establish a new market by providing services to underserved customer segments. Now, if you look at Asian and Asia as a region, there is a huge population of underbanked customers. If you look at India, There are people who haven't been to a city throughout their lifetime, but they're still using a mobile phone, and they don't want to walk into a branch, or they don't want to go to about 10-50 kilometers to get their things done. So, but with the technology developments, these customers can be targeted, and they can be get into the banking industry. And in developing market, growth is driven by taking market share from incumbents. So what does it mean is, now if you look at Europe and Western markets, most of them are in the banking. They are working through the banking system, and especially for digital banks, the operating model is they don't have the large underbank marketing, underbank customer segment. So they have to either give value-added services or extra conveniences, and whoever is bringing that innovation will survive. So it's about taking market share, especially in growth developed markets. And when you are looking at digital banking, you can't have the same product for everyone. Your operating model has to have a different variations, different models. It can be the language, or it can be the way the setup has been done. For an example, all of you know that Muslims, the Arabics, they write the other way around, not the same way. That if you go and introduce the app, and if it has the UI UX part from left to right, they will never use it. So you need to look at countries like that and develop accordingly. And if you do like that, and if they see any convenience, or if they see a potential growth in that area, you can be a global phenomenon. And following up with the last point, banks similar variety of operating models and regulatory frameworks around. If it's like a simple lending or a deposit taking, your regulatory aspect is very small. And if you are trying to do credit risk analysis and go completely different, you can have a large scale of regulatory framework. So regulatory framework is also different from one to another. Another interesting fact now, Google and Facebook, when they introduced to the market, they actually came at zero cost to the consumer. But all of you know that they are the number one and they are within the top 10 brands in the world at the moment, but they don't charge a single cent from the customer. How? They walked into the market as a freemium model. So you give the extra conveniences, you give the platform free to the consumer, thereby they grab the entire world connected to them. And the businesses or the world organizations has to cope up with Google and Facebook to survive in the market. So Google and Facebook is the classic example of freemium model. Their basic services are offered to free to secure the customer's relationship, with the aim of upselling to services later. And if you want to have a Google storage, yes, you can pay it and take it. So if you want to have a Google server or a Google email, Google business model, yes, you can pay it and take it. Similarly, Facebook. So you can join Facebook free of charge, but if you want to operate a business model or the business account, yes, you can pay it and take it. And similarly, other businesses are also joining these platforms simply because of the large customer base that they have. Similarly, the neobanks, the digital banks can actually look at two different options. Either they can go premium only model or hybrid business model. What does it mean is, now, can someone tell me what is premium only model or hybrid business model means. Anyone would like to comment on what? Is everyone there?
Premium mean maybe full digitalizations.
Not really, Shishan. Premium only model is now, if I put it in that way, so you identify a particular customer segment who could be an affluent market segment, let's say HNI customer. I'm sure all of you have learned about HNI customers. You all had a session on that, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
HNI customers,
We have it.
they're very sensitive to the rupees and the dollars that they earn and invest. So when it comes to a situation like that, a neobank can actually target that segment and say, okay, we will do investment banking for you. We will invest in such products or stock market or investment products, and this will be the premium charge that we charge from you. So it can actually replace some of the these investment brokers in the market. So if these investment bankers can actually see what's happening in their investment on their mobile itself, and there'll be a charge for it. And similarly, on the other hand, what the hybrid model means, okay, you offer basic banking products free of charge. You can pay your electricity bill or your telephone bill or your payments can be done free of charge. There'll be no additional cost or anything. But if you want extra credit, okay, at present you don't have enough money in your account to pay a bill, okay, you can request for extra credit through the app itself, and thereby bank will provide you extra credit, and for that you will have to pay a small fee. So these are called hybrid models. And what the success of these models are based on what market you are going to operate, as well as how you are going to operate, and what services or the convenience that you are bringing into the customer. So when you are if you want to operate in a digital banking area, or if you want to develop something in digital banking, you have to always think about what is your cost structure is going to be, how are you going to price your product, is it going to be a free basis? I will tell you a classic example of how UPay is actually penetrating the market. Now, we are at UPay. What we do is we offer all of our services to the customer free of charge. But when you pay a electricity bill or a telephone bill, we don't charge from customers. So if you are paying 1,000 rupees, your 1,000 rupees will be paid to the Dialog bill itself. But Dialog is actually paying a commission to us because we have created a pathway for Dialog and the consumer to. We have actually created access for both parties through a medium of digital, through a digital medium. Thereby, customer is also getting benefit. Dialog is also getting benefit, and Dialog is actually getting more benefit than the bank, because their funds in their account will be within 3 seconds. For that, they'll have to pay a commission to the bank. So that's how these hybrid models are working. I hope you got an idea of what the hybrid models are and the premium models. Any questions?
Excuse me, sir, can you explain it again?
Which part? The premium model or the hybrid model?
Hybrid.
Hybrid. මම මෙහෙම කිව්වොත් දැන් අපි ගත්තොත් සිම්පල් මොකක් හරි දැන් අපි උදාහරණයකට අපි Google ගමුකෝ Google එකේ ඕගොල්ලන්ට ඊමේල් account එකක් open කරන්න ඊමේල් යවන්න සහ ඊමේල් receive කරන්න මේකට නැත්නම් information එක search කරන්න කිසිම fee එකක් charge කරන්නේ නැහැ ඒගොල්ලන්. හැබැයි ඔයාගේ Google server එකේ ඔයාට storage එක වැඩි කරගන්න ඕනේ. එහෙම නැත්නම් ඔයාට ඒකේ business account එකක් open කරන්න ඕන. ඔයාට ඒකට ඩොලර්ස් ගාණක් pay කරලා ඉවර වෙලා ඒ facility එක ලබා ගන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ similar concept එක තමයි මේ hybrid bank digital banking model එකේ use කරන්නේ. දැන් එතනදි වෙන්නේ ගොඩක් දුරට ඔයාගේ basic banking needs ටික ඔයාට කිසිම fee එකක් නැතුව ඔයාට ලබා දෙනවා. මොකක් හරි තව එක bank එකකින් තව bank එකකට fund transfer කරනවා නම් ඔයාට ඒක free of charge දෙන්න පුළුවන්. නැත්නම් ඔයා account opening එකක් ගත්තොත් ඔයා ඒක ඇතුලේ සමහරක් විට දැනටමත් account එකක් තියෙනවා නම් ඒ account එක ඇතුලේ ඔයා තව FD එකක් හරි ඒ වගේ facilities පාවිච්චි කරනවා නම් ඔයාට additional fee එකක් charge වෙන්නේ නැහැ. හැබැයි එතනින් එහාට ගිහිල්ලා ඔයාට additional service එකක් ඔයා request කරොත් උදාහරණයකට අපි ගත්තොත් emergency credit facility එකක් ඔයා request කරොත් ඔයාගේ මේ digital banking වල තියෙන beauty එක තමයි ඔයා කරන හැම transaction එකක් සහ ඒ හැම interaction එකක්ම record කරගන්න පුළුවන්. අපි ඒ ගැන ඉස්සරහට කතා කරමු. ඒ කොහොමද මේ facility එක සම්බන්ධ. එතනදී වෙන්නේ ඔයාගේ transactional behavior එක අනුව එයාට අවශ්‍ය විදිහට වෙනම credit facility එකක් app එක ඇතුළතදීම නිර්මාණය කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඔයා මාසෙකට රුපියල් ලක්ෂ 2ක් ගනුදෙනු කරන කස්ටමර් කෙනෙක් සහ ඒ අතර ඔයාගේ deposit සහ withdrawals ගණනය වෙන්නේ විදිහට නම් the bank can the app itself can say okay it's okay to give him a 50,000 credit balance because he will settle that off in his next salary date. So that services you can get it at a charge, and the bank can actually get more money by giving such technologies to the customer. Think අන්න ඒ වගේ technologies develop කරපුවාම වෙන්නේ ඒවා hybrid model. එතකොට ඔයාට අර additional services වලට charge කරලා basic services වලට free of charge දෙන්න පුළුවන්. So I hope you got an understanding of that.
So nowadays that when it comes to the credit card, we have given that temporary enhancement, right? So is it
Yes.
So is it equal to hybrid model? Because
No, that is different. What's your name? Sorry, I can't see you. Yes, Prabhat. It's a different model now. Credit limit enhancement is it is nothing to do with the technology aspect. Yes, you use some technologies to evaluate customers.
Sorry to interrupt you. Let's say that one of our customer is at private hospital. He wanted to make pay his payment to the hospital bill. Now he doesn't have enough credit limit to repay that. So we have given the facilities that he or she touch with our call center. We have given them. We are giving 100%, but based on the behavior, and we will give you that enhancement. He or she should settle that particular time period.
Yes. That is basically with the relationship that you have built over the years. What we spoke about here is technologies that are used to do hybrid models. What you said was completely true, but you just imagine our customer has to call either the call center or the card center. Okay, I'm going to do this sort of transaction, but my limit is not enough, and I need a credit increment in my credit. And the bank has to go and check, okay, what is his payment history, what is his spending history, whether he has been a default customer or at some point, or whether it's authenticated transactions. But it takes time. So it can be either, let's say, minimum within about at least it will take about 1 to 2 hours for him to get that facility arranged. But what I'm saying in the technology format is now, let's say you are paying a dialog bill through your app and you have only 2,000 rupees available in your account, and app will immediately identify, and your bill amount would be 2,500. App will immediately say, okay, you don't have sufficient balance in your account. Would you like to get an extra credit? When you press yes, your bill will be paid, and you will immediately get a solution for your problem. You don't have to call anyone, or you don't have to wait for others to do approval or anything. And the systems can actually identify that this customer is an eligible customer to get a credit facility, and he can it's okay to give this facility. It can apply to cards as well.
Yeah, is it like to nowadays we are using temporary credit for the mobile, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, got it. Clear. Thank you.
Okay. The other important area for us to look at is the regional differences.
Yeah.
So there's a small.
Yeah, go ahead, Nisha.
Yeah, small thing, sir.
Yeah.
Actually, as Prabhat said, usually, as I know, usually when credit card increasing the credit limits, they are increasing the client's credit limit year by year. But when customer need to increase that limit up to, let's say, we have 100,000, customer requesting another 100,000, let's 200,000, but the bank is charging for that. No,
exactly.
Then we can call it hybrid.
No, Nishad, that it is not a hybrid. Okay, what you are mentioning is it is a credit evaluation process, no? Yeah, how? Okay, let me put it you in different way. Let's take Google as an example. Google, they give you most of their services as free of charge, but there'll be a limit. Okay, you have only 5 GB as your free capacity, and if you want more spaces, you can subscribe to a 10 GB or a 5 TB facility at a charge of, let's say, $10 or $50. Now, that is the hybrid model. Okay, you give some facilities free of charge and some facilities at a charge. But on the other hand, the premium model is you don't give anything free of charge. You simply charge for the entire service that you do. It could be a commission income or a fee income, where you don't give anything free, you charge for it.
Right.
Credit card limit enhancement is a completely different.
But sir, it is something the hybrid. It is, yeah. What you said is correct. It is a credit evaluation tool, but it is used by the hybrid model because
Yes. It doesn't relate it to the subject that you are talking about, Prabhat. That's what I am mentioning. It is a hybrid model too.
Yeah. Okay, sir.
Because the difference is, even let's say you have 100,000 credit limit and you increase it up to 200,000, your 100,000 is interest bearable. It is not given free. If it's given free, then yes.
So that means basically in our normal banking online systems, so that's under that hybrid system.
Not everything. The bank can actually decide which one you want to go hybrid or which one you want to go premium payment mode. All right. Okay, let's quickly move to our other important fact, the regional differences. Now, if you are looking at technology developments, so you should always look at who is your customer. And at our at our number one point, we spoke about being consumer centric. So you keep your customer in the middle and see who is he, what language he speaks, what his education level, what he likes and dislikes. And I don't need to tell you, you know how to analyze your customers. Similarly, you need to look at the geographical or the regional differences too. And why I say is, each country has their own way of living, own way of doing things. There are cultural differences, there are behavioral differences, there are language barriers. So when you are developing something, because the technology is not limited to a one particular segment. The recent classic example is our Yohani. She took Sri Lanka to the next level. The medium she chose, people will say it is the song or the Manike Magehite song which changed the game of that. It is the song. It is not only the song. It is actually the TikTok platform which changed the entire game, right? Because people who are in other countries also using TikTok. And when Sri Lankans started doing TikToks for the music, it appeared in other countries and people started reacting to that. And that's where the real game change happened. And then only they started listening to the song, they started dancing to they started acting to the music. Probably they may not understand what the language or the meaning of the song, but they started reacting to the they started reacting to the trend. That's where it actually became a worldwide phenomenon. And we need to especially look at regional differences, because immediately when the song was hit the Indian market, she reacted really well and she did a covers in different languages. She did it in Tamil, Malayalam, and Hindi. So people people who are native in those languages, they immediately brought those insights and it started going viral even more. So when you are doing something, especially in the technology industry, so you have to keep in these things in mind. So the example doesn't have to be in the banking industry itself. So you can take example from anywhere. So, like I mentioned, your next threat or the opportunity can come from any industry, and especially if you look at Asia Pacific, is a fantastic market to learn new things. When I was working for HSBC, we had a program called the entire bank had a program called idea sharing. So it's if one country does something, a marketing activity or a program or product innovation, and then it's being shared among the countries as well. It can be a successful story or it can be a completely failure. And why it is important share is, once you share the experience, the next time when you are trying to do something, you know, okay, these people have successfully done in this country, and these are the learnings, these are the positives and the negatives. So when we try to do something in our country, we already know the outcome of it, so we don't need to be a failure again. So we can either improve according to our demographics and make it a successful. While why I say the Asia Pacific is a heterogeneous market, because to almost 1/3 of the population in the world is in the Asian Pacific market, and there are language gaps, there are language cultural gaps, way of working. And if you look at China, and China is a complete different market simply because of the size and the degree, the level of innovation that they brought into the world. So people say no, in ඉන්දියාවේ පුලත් පිටක් විකුණුවත් බිලියනපතියෙක් වෙන්න පුළුවන් වගේ. දැන් ඒකේ latest version එක තමයි චයිනා ගත්තොත් චයිනා වල ඔයා හොඳ ටෙක්නොලොජි එකක් ඩෙවලොප් කරොත්, මොකක් හරි ඒ වගේ අලුත් ඉනෝවේෂන් එකක් මේව කරොත් ඔයාට චයිනා ඇතුළෙම බර්ල් ලීඩර් කෙනෙක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ වගේ තමයි අලිබබා, අලිපේ වගේ ටෙක්නොලොජි ප්ලැට්ෆෝම්ස් ඉඳලා අද චයිනා මේ ලෝකේ ලොකු වෙනසක් කරන්න පුළුවන් තැනකට ඇවිල්ලා තියෙන්නේ. ඉතින් මේ වගේ කාරණා ගැන ඔයගලන්ට ඇත්තටම Google එකේ නැත්නම් forums වල එහෙම search කරලා බලලා ඉගෙන ගන්න පුළුවන් මේ ටෙක්නොලොජි ඉනෝවේෂන්ස් හින්දා අද ලෝකේ මිනිස්සු හිතන විදිය, අඳින පළදින විදිය සහ කෑම කන විදිය, ඒ වගේ අර බේසික්ස් තරමටම මිනිස්සු බේසික්ස් වලට ඉම්පැක්ට් එකක් වෙන තරමටම වෙනස් වෙලා දිනවා. උදාහරණයක් ගත්තොත් අද TikTok platform එක ඉස්සර ඇත්තටම TikTok එක කියන්නේ අපි ලංකාවට ආපු මුල් දවස්වල TikTok එක තනිකර නිකන් අර මිනිස්සු entertainment comedy පැත්තට බර විදිහට තිබ්බ ඇප් එකක්. හැබැයි අද ඒක idea sharing, innovations පැත්තට නැත්තම් learning platform එකක් විදිහට, නැත්තම් ගොඩක් කට්ටිය තමන්ගේ ideas express කරගන්න, තමන්ගේ ප්‍රොඩක්ට් එකක් නැත්නම් මොකක් හරි සර්විස් එකක් විකුණ ගන්න පුළුවන් විදිහට මේ අවුරුදු 2-3 ඇතුළත ඒක වෙනස් වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඉතින් එතකොට ලංකාවේ ඔයගලන් දැක්කොත් කවුරුත් හිතන්නේ නැති පුද්ගලයෝ පවා සහ කවුරුත් විශ්වාස කරන්නේ නැති organizations මේ platform use කරනවා. අද ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ඒ මොකද වෙන මුකුත්ම හින්දා නෙවෙයි, මේ ටෙක්නොලොජි environment එකත් එක්ක ඒගොල්ලන් cope up වුණේ නැත්තම් තව අවුරුදු කීපයක් යනකොට ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ බිස්නස් එක මාකට් එක අවුට්ඩේටඩ් වෙන්න පුළුවන්.
mean they are doing digital marketing?
It is not only digital marketing, it is about how you cope up with the technology trend.
Yeah, the thing is that I have seen when you listed with the largest bank in the world, now we do have a few set of a digital bank, no? But
Yes.
Still I have seen that they have not come to that digital level, because that you said the V Bank is the world largest digital bank, but
Yes.
commercial bank of China is the big bank of the world. So, but why is that happens? Because is there a difference? Why they are not grabbing that opportunity, or is there any?
My answer to your question is on the screen. The last 3 word is the answer to your question. Degree of innovation. Because if you look at V Bank, they predominantly started as a digital platform. Their operating model is completely digital. Their level of innovation is, I would say, thousands times higher than Bank of China. Now, Bank of China, their level of innovation, I won't say zero, but their adaptations to innovations and the technology platforms are not such great as V Bank, because they have been operating in a traditional banking manner. So if they are to move into a, I would say, another segment, because the other interesting factor is now WeChat already had a large consumer base. Millions of Chinese people were already using WeChat as their primary chat group, chat medium. And WeChat had the opportunity to plug in that banking model simply into that app itself. But if you look at Bank of China, if they are to go and canvas customers or bringing in new technologies, their investment is much higher than WeChat. So degree of innovation is the and technology adaptation to the technology is what is going to define your future of business.
Great, thank you.
Right. And we actually spoke about now Tencent is actually the mother company of WeChat and Alibaba. So their operating model is not just apps. So they are operating as super apps because WeChat and Ant Financials, they are trying to capture the market being super apps. So they have chat apps, so you can book taxis, you can do banking with them, you can do, I would say, your healthcare can be done through apps. So entire lifestyle can be managed through such apps. So they are working on creating these super apps. It could be such a big thing for consumers. There are positives and negatives also, but we have to look at how best we can manage. So we can be such technology heavy, and it may sometimes disrupt the community also. But if a bank or any app provider, it is their responsibility to make it in a such manner. Now, if you look at Facebook, they had certain incidents with countries where they were involved in political decision making and consumer. They were questioned by the consumer authorities. So, being technology advance is a fantastic thing, but also you have to keep in mind that you have to do it at such degree levels. And these are another classic examples. So if you look at Singaporean taxi company Grab and Gojek in Indonesia, Paytm in India, Rakuten Japan, and Line, these were never into financial. They are completely from now. Grab is a taxi company. Rakuten is a mobile network provider. But they had the customer base, so they saw the opportunities coming up in the financial inclusivity, and they simply moved up with the technology development. And since they already had the consumer base, they started the consumers started liking it, and they moved up significantly. And if you look at now, South Korea is one of the tech heavy and data driven country in the world. So if you get any chance to go to South Korea, it is a fantastic country to learn about technology developments. So one of their success stories is they are very focused on technology. They are very data driven. Every decisions that they take based on the data analytics, and they create technologies which can disrupt the entire world economy. Classic example is Samsung. When Samsung came into market, they actually shut down almost all the mobile phone makers like Nokia to Motorola to everyone. Right. Any questions? So we spoke about key important things. Number one, how when you are in digital banking industry, number one is you have to be very customer oriented. The other one, Number two is you have to have a clear vision, and your operating model is should be completely customer focused, and it can't be a same model operating giving it to each and every customer. And you need to identify the regional differences, consumer differences in each country, to the city, to the even to the grassroots level. So if you are looking at developing something new in the technology industry, you have to keep in mind these 3 points. Any questions, guys?
Yes, excuse me, sir. I don't know whether it is related to this topic or not. I want to get some information from you that when it comes to the credit card, we can take a loan on card and we can ask them to transfer to our savings account.
Yes.
Why we cannot having that loan on card facility? Why we cannot transfer our balance to another savings or another credit card?
Your question is, if I understood correctly, so there is a facility called card on loan. That means
Yeah. Loan on card.
you are giving a loan on your existing credit balance,
Balance. Yes.
unused credit balance, and crediting it to the savings account.
Yeah, since we cannot transfer that particular balance directly to our product, we like to direct to our savings. So,
Is it you are talking about the within bank or the outside bank?
outside?
Okay. The decision is actually based. It can be done actually. There is no way it cannot be done. But the decision is with the bank whether they allow it or not allow it.
As far as my knowledge, I haven't seen anything. But if you do have, please do share with me. But I haven't seen any plus point with regard to that matter. I mean that they most of the bank, they are not allowed to directly transfer the existing balance to the another outside or credit card or whatever the things. They are not allowed.
The simple reason why they don't do it is because if they transfer that money into another bank account, they usually lose the interest earning on the account. So that's why they don't do it. But it can be done. There's no way that it's legally prohibited or legally not allowed. But like you mentioned, I think it's a fantastic point because I was actually I did some projects on card on loan on card area, where the point that you mentioned was actually something that I never thought of doing it. But you can actually, which bank are you from, Prabhat?
Standard Chartered.
Standard Chartered. You can actually introduce that to your cards team and say, because it will be a fantastic opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Some other banks can, because there's no harm in doing that. I don't see any credit risk because that credit is already given to you, and you can actually do it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Any other questions before we go into a little break? So after the break, so we are going to talk about the AML and compliance factor side of digital banking, and what are the new trends that are coming into market within the next couple of years. We are not talking about 10, 15 years ahead, because the technologies that we develop, is the lifetime of technologies are very short. So your technology development will only last 1 or 2 years unless you do innovations and product enhancements, technology enhancements. So we are going to talk about AML side, the new trends and new things to come in next 2022 to 2025, and what are the tools and theories that are supporting to do for you to being creative and understand customer behaviors. So it's 3:15 at the moment. So let's take a 20-minute break and see you all at 3:35.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Welcome back again, team. Can we go to our next session? I can see only 20 members logged in, so I hope others will join in too. And let's go to our next session. Right. So we actually spoke about what the new. How would you design your product according to customer requirements? Looking at regional perspective, at the demographics, the biographics, all sort of stuff, and another major important factor is how you manage your AML and regulatory compliances. I'm sure you all had a lesson session on AML and compliance, and especially when it comes to digital banking, at the rate of because of the rate that digital banking and the technologies are growing. So you need to have a clear understanding, or rather better understanding, but AML and regulatory compliances should be in place for digital banking products and the services that you offer. So I will not go in detail about what are the regulatory acts or the laws that have passed in the banking industry, since you all had a session on AML previously. But I will touch upon a few key areas, how you should, what are the areas, or how you should identify potential threats, and where you can place some technology developments to mitigate any fraudster activities, especially when developing digital products. So as banks and other financial institutions embrace advances in financial technology, the digital banking sector has grown dramatically. So as we spoke earlier, the segment that we are talking about is growing at a significant rate, and especially during the coronavirus crisis. The banking industry has experienced a 200% increase in mobile banking registration in April 2020 itself. Like I mentioned previously, most of the adults who were not using these smartphones and mobile apps had no chance of interacting with the bank, so they were unable to go to the ATMs or the counters to withdraw money, but they had to manage their basic needs. And banks came, since the banks, especially the Sri Lankan banks, had such technologies developed in place, adaptation increased by 200%. So for an example, at SDB, we, I'm not too sure whether I mentioned this last week, but there was a technology development. We did it in almost within 1.5 weeks, where we introduced the technology platform called mTeller, where we didn't have ATM machines to go and place it in branches or the cities or rural areas. We only had a few ATMs, but demand came from almost all over the places. What we did was, our POS terminals, we converted the technology of a mobile app into a M-Teller, where our branch staff visited some of the towns and the cities, and immediately did cash transactions using that technology. So if you all want more information on that, I will share. But since it's, I think that's what I was trying to mention. When you do such developments, especially in the technology industry, it can take off in a perfect manner. The UPay was another example. People couldn't survive without data during lockdown period. So, but most of the communications were closed, and they had no way of getting either reloads or paying their mobile bills. But fintech solutions had answers to all of these questions. Similarly, when you create such sophisticated technologies, there is another set of I would see them as testers, or rather a different segment of customers in the retail banking, especially in the technology sector. They are called hackers or the criminals, where they find such loopholes, or rather identify some areas where they can go and either hack some system, or trying to find an opportunity where they can get some money out of the banking system or out of customers' account. I see them as innovators from a different point of view, because you may be the guru in the technology industry, but there is another set of people who can look at things differently. We need people like that, and because then only the technologies can be developed to be a safe and secure platform for everyone. And if you don't have people who do hacking or accessing your data, so giving you cyber attacks, the industry will not grow. And so, but it is but you have to keep in mind that you are working with one of the customer's sensitive matter, that is their money. So every single rupee or a cent that you are holding of customer is a concern for them. So that's where these AML and regulatory compliance matters. In a changing financial sector, firms must prioritize compliance for their digital banking services to ensure that they are able to detect and prevent money laundering activities, continue to deliver regulatory compliance. So, like we spoke earlier, how you should be more customer-centric and design your product accordingly. You must prioritize the compliance framework. So it can be internal compliance framework or a regulatory compliance framework. You should always have special attention to those regulatory compliance. Otherwise, one single incident can simply tarnish your entire business model. There had been few situations in Sri Lanka, I won't mention the names, but certain apps, they built a fantastic technology for customer convenience, but certain set of people identify, okay, this is a perfect way for us to do illegal fraud activity. So they actually started using it more than the regular customers, and unfortunately, because of the risk factor, some of their operations had to terminate down, and they had to come up with other alternative solution not to allow such illegal activities. So you have to keep in mind that when you are developing something, especially in the digital banking sector, you have to have that protections and protocols to safeguard the future of the business and especially your customer segment. Otherwise, one single incident will kick you out of the game in matter of seconds. And moving on, if you look at digital banking service providers, they face two set of risk. One is conventional money laundering risk, and other one is the fintech advantages. Now, can someone tell me what is the difference between these two? I hope everyone is there and everyone can hear, because I'm just talking to a PC and a camera, and I don't get any response from you. So I hope you all are listening. And please, someone tell me what is the conventional money laundering risk and the fintech advances. Anyone wants to comment on this?
In fintech, we can trace where we receive money and how it comes to the account.
Yes, that is the plus side of fintech advances, Diploma. What I'm asking is the difference between conventional and fintech, how the risk have evolved between these two.
The conventional normal transactions between we are doing in the banking sector, but fintech mean online, so we can't see the person.
Yes, online, yeah. Up to a certain level, can you tell me some example of fintech?
Internet bank internet banking transaction.
How does a fraudster would tackle your financial transactions?
So normally we don't know other party, who is the party is there, but we have only number or any so we can do the transaction, but we can't see that person.
No, the risk of fintech advances is actually, now if you look at suddenly you might get an email saying, okay, you have won this fantastic lottery, and you have to you will get an email saying, okay, put your account number, and I think that there are a few cases like that, no? All of you remember?
Yes.
Okay. Those are fintech advances, and sometimes you might
When you open up the email that they
yes,
said
yes.
there's a lottery and you want that prize, and you need to pay money, put down this account, and you get that. Likewise, right?
Likewise, yes. So, or even if you go into such advances, when you get such phishing emails, it can actually create a bug on your mobile devices.
Yes.
It can simply derive all your passwords and usernames and everything, where a fraudster can use it on another device and simply take out your money.
Money. So what is that? So I do had a training a few weeks back about that. That they say that once you we are not supposed to click that attachment. Once we appeared that, they suggested to disconnect our internet and delete everything from your recycle bin also.
Yes.
That
So
is how they are advised to.
If you face a such incident, you should immediately take all necessary actions, because once a bug is created on your device, either your mobile or the laptop, you will not see anything happening in the front side of it, but from the back end, they have actually taken down all your details.
That's true, sir. That's true, because that they what they said is that they said once you delete while you are living with the internet, it doesn't mean that you are safe. they asked to what they call disconnect the internet line and
Yeah.
deleted that everything from your devices. Then only you can
Most
survive.
probably
Other
you will
than
have- yeah, most probably you'll have to inform your mobile provider, internet provider to change your IP addresses.
yeah,
Otherwise, because these tech the fraudsters, the cyber attackers, they are so advanced. They have the similar mindset of people who have created the facility. So though they know how these codes have been created, and
yeah.
they can
What you said, yeah. Sorry to interrupt. What you said is correct, sir. Because in the beginning of this conversation, you said there are some innovators. Yeah, that's correct. Why that is country like us? Why we cannot get their help in order to increase our business? I haven't seen that thing in our banking history. Uh, we are not using that their knowledge in order to keep up our banking sector in higher note.
So you are very
Okay.
correct, because banks is the perfect example of uh, organizations that are taking risk. But when it comes to risk, they only think about the financial risk. The credit evaluation in terms of financial side. But we are in a digital evolving world. So the digital space is evolving faster than we think. So especially banks, to survive in the next 5 to 10 years, they have to take risk in, especially in the digital sector. They have to look at customer conveniences, and they have to not only think about the convenience factor or the new developments from customers' point of view, and they'll have to think about what uh, they should put your head into a fraudster's hat also, and to see where the next hack the issue is going to come from. So if they don't do that, none of these banks will survive in the next 5 to 10 years, because a fintech company can take over your entire market position by simply developing a small fintech solution. So these are the new fintech advances: phishing emails, malicious software applications. So now a classic example that I want to share with you is you may have seen such. Okay, has anyone heard mobile wala? The term called mobile wala. Anyone heard the name of mobile wala?
Is that an African?
No, it's actually this is a very underlying business that is happening in the market right now. Mobile Wala is a database collection platform. So you may have experienced some while you are browsing internet or playing game, or while you are connected to the internet at any particular moment, you may have seen some advertisements. Okay, do you like to play this game, or do you like to a certain some sort of advertisements, and it asks you to either enter your details or click next to move into a next step. I'm sure most of you have had that experience. So Mobile Wala is a platform that they use algorithms, and they use consumer behaviors to target um, such devices through the behavioral analysis. What does it do? Let's say if I'm a person who is very passionate about traveling. So I go and find out on the internet where the travel destinations, the new, I mean, anything to do with travel, I basically go and search. Then suddenly I see an advertisement say, okay, you want this uh, a camping tent for your next hiking trip or something, then you obviously go and click yes. At that time, they basically install a bug in your device without you knowing, and they will track your entire, I would say, journey from your smartphone to your internet devices to everything. They can track, and they sell those databases to the companies for remarketing purposes. And it is not a known business, but it is a hugely used underlying business in the market. So these are the I would say underlying businesses that has developed because of the fintech advances. So when you go to go and search for something in let's say you search a hotel on booking.com, and next time about two or 3 days later, when you go and search something on the Google, you are receiving notification from, okay, this hotel is available at this rate in this location. So those are the algorithms and the consumer behavior analysis tools that are using by fintech organizations to target customers. And but if you look at the banking industry, we are dealing with people's money, and we are into a very ethical business. So we can't use such, or we can't do such underlying activities. And also, our platforms has to be secured for not allowing others to come and play around in our databases. So that's why AML and compliance regulations are so important. We have adequate level of securities enabled in our platforms.
So is a fintech is an organization or a company?
Fintech is an industry.
Industry.
Like tourism. Yeah, it's an industry.
Okay, right.
Like tourism, healthcare, it's a industry which it's not only the banks that are in the fintech industry. It could be technology providers, it could be IT related network, or the software or the hardware providers, and it could be so it's a collection of many industries that are helping to build a business, rather another ecosystem in the banking industry. So bank is only a part of it. Digital banking services are popular with money launderers because of the relative anonymity they offer and lack of fintech regulation in the territories around the world. So this is something that you all have mentioned now. When it comes to digital transactions, we don't get to see the end-to-end person from both sides of the person. So it, someone in another country, we don't know whether he's black or white, or he's male or female, or we have no idea, and we don't know the person A or the person B. And money launderers actually they use this they use this as for their positiveness, and they think, okay, මම කවුද කියලා දන්නේ නැහැ නේ. ඉතින් මට මේවා යූස් කරාට කිසිම ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ කියලා. But the plus sides or the beauty of the digital banking is your transactions are end-to-end recorded. So they know from which mobile phone, which mobile number, which country, which network that they use, and what's the bank or the term. Everything from first interaction point to the last interaction point, they can trace down these transactions. It's not like physical transaction. So when we have such so it is up to us to identify such activities and take control. So if you see unsuspicious activities happening in an account, we can immediately either block or hold that transactions. So systems should be built to support such activities also, while we are building while we are enabling customers to transfer from one account to another account within 3 seconds. Similarly, within that 3 seconds, we should be able to identify whether this is an authenticated transactions or a fraud activity. So AML frameworks and especially the risk tools needs to be relooked at and introduced in digital formats to identify such activities in the digital market. Any questions, guys? I hope you understood what I mentioned about AML.
Yes, sir. This is out of the confession. There's one question that you said that we can every transaction what we have done through the internet, it will be recorded.
Yes.
So, but in the present, then web hackers we cannot. Maybe I have lack of knowledge about the hackers, but is there any country that they have identified the hackers' locations?
Yes, yes. So that's the point that I'm coming into next. How can we comply to such? So since the growth rate is such high, it's not only the respective bank or the financial institute has to identify such technologies. The entire world is actually working on developing such technologies. So now, for an example, some countries have banned doing online transactions, and some countries have given flag systems. There are certain countries that I know they can't, the banks cannot work with such countries when it comes to wire transactions, especially for terrorism financing, money laundering activities, and if banks which are operating in such countries, they have I would say very strict level of compliance imposed in terms of digital activity. So that's the point that I'm going to talk now, because while we say, okay, we should look at developing our technologies, we need to look at such activities like this. Now, banks and financial instruments must ensure that they provide digital services in compliance with the AML and CFT regulations. What does it mean is, your idea may be a fantastic idea and it could resolve a customer issue in, I would say, less than 1 second. But if it is not in compliance with anti-money laundering activity or compliance activity, then the regulatory bodies will not allow such technologies to develop. So when you are developing a new technology, or when you are trying to create a new service for the customer, so this is very important. And also, like I mentioned earlier, when you are developing such technologies, you should always wear the hat of a fraudster. You should always look at, you can have, these are two customer segments that you need to look at. එක පැත්තකින් ඔයා බලන්න ඕනේ මම සාමාන්‍ය විදිහට ගනුදෙනු කරන කස්ටමර් කෙනෙක්. එතකොට මට ලංකාවේ ඇතුළත ට්‍රාන්සැක්ෂන් එකක් කරනවා නම් මොන විදිහේ පහසුවක්ද, මොන විදිහේ ටෙක්නොලොජි ඩෙවලොප්මන්ට් එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම ඊට සමගාමීව අනිත් පැත්තෙන් බලන්න ඕනේ මේ වගේ ට්‍රාන්සැක්ෂන් එකක් ඇතුළත මම කොහොමද මේකෙන් මේක මැදට රිංගල ඉවර වෙලා මේකෙන් සල්ලි මේ ට්‍රාන්සැක්ෂන් එකෙන් සල්ලි එළියට ගන්න. එහෙම නැත්නම් මේ ෆැසිලිටි එක යූස් කරලා මම කොහොමද ෆ්‍රෝඩ් ඇක්ටිවිටි එකක් කරන්නේ. මේ වගේ හැම අපි කිව්වොත් කාසියක every coin has two sides of it is ඒ වගේම මේ වගේ දෙයක් කරනකොට අපි ඒක බලන්න ඕනේ කොහොමද මේ technology develop කරන්නේ. ඒක තමයි banks must take a risk based approach. If the risk is too high, then you need to have controls. That doesn't mean that you should stop developing it. So when you are developing the system, you should look at the risk side of it, and you should take actions to mitigate that risk. And it can be your learnings can be from your internal compliance program, or you can learn it from the industry, or you can learn it from a completely different industry itself. So the learnings and the ideas can be taken out from anywhere. So the important thing is you need to look at it from different angles. So especially when you are doing something, you have to look at a 360-degree view. It's not your front side or your back-end processors. You have to look at it from completely 360-degree view, which area that you need to improve, or you need to downgrade, or you need to add more controls, likewise. And another very important thing is customer due diligence, CDD, to accurately verify identities of digital banking customers. So especially when it comes to digital onboarding, you are not physically see the person. And for an example, you are giving customers the mobile banking facility, but those days I remember the customers had to come to a branch and then enroll for the facility. But today nobody will come to a branch to get the mobile banking facility, but you need to have better controls to do the customer due diligence. So you need to authenticate his identity, whether he's the right customer, and things like if you remember, we spoke about SMS. So SMS is the key fundamental tool to authenticate customer identification. So otherwise anyone can download app from anywhere from the app store, and if he knows the account number and things like that, and then he can do transactions. But if you have the SMS banking facility registered with the bank, then there are certain steps can be taken down. So likewise, CDD is a key measure that you need to do. And also under the risk-based approach, customers that present a high risk of money laundering should be subject to EDD, enhanced due diligence. Now there could be some customers we know that, okay, he is a very important customer to us, but we have a bit of a gray understanding of what he is doing. So in such cases, sir, we cannot limit him to, okay, ඔයා කරන ගැඩ ගැන අපිට කිසි පැහැදීමක් නැහැ, ඒකින්ද අපිට ඔයාට මොබයිල් ඇප් එක දෙන්න බෑ. ඒවා කියන්න බෑ. Because he is from frontline point of view, he is a regular customer of ours. But you can do some enhanced due diligences. That means you can have better control of what his transactions. Maybe his you can add some limits to his transactions. You can have better security for such persons. So the EDD is a key factor when you are doing risk-based approach, especially in the digital business. Monitoring to measures in order to detect suspicious customer activity during digital banking transaction, such as unusual transaction patterns, transaction above a reporting threshold, or transactions with high-risk countries. This is the answer to that the question that you asked. When it comes to digital transactions, we should always have measurements to identify such transactional activity. Let's say people who are in the card business might know that if a customer is doing some regular transactions, let's say his average transaction value is about 5,000 rupees per transaction, but suddenly out of nowhere in a different country, you see a transaction of 500,000. So it is a unusual transaction pattern. Similarly, in mobile banking apps or internet banking, you can see this customer is used to transfer about 10,000, 15,000 to few of his created pays and non-pay creators about. But suddenly you see 2-3 millions transacting, trying to transact from the two completely different new accounts in a different page or bank. Then the bank should have such facilities enabled in the system to detect, because these are the algorithms. So there are softwares available, there are risk management tools applicable to such mitigate such incidents in the industry. And countries like Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, certain financial organizations have identified such countries as high-risk countries. So if a bank is doing transaction with such countries, there are extended approaches that they have to do. They have completely stopped. For an example, I know a certain bank who have been doing transaction. A customer is using the platforms to do transaction with Iran. That is completely do terrorism financing. So the bank had to pay a huge amount of penalty for not complying with the compliances, as well as not taking necessary steps to avoid such incidences. So bank, this is a very important area, that how a banker should comply to digital transactions to avoid any frauds in the future.
Here, sorry to interrupt. Even sir, one of our let's say one of our customer is it migrate to run, we cannot give a call to him. No, as per the, at least we cannot give a call to him, right?
If he's like, if you think that he is a genuine customer and contactable, you can, but
Other than
you need to have better controls. That's the bottom line of it. There can be now, let's say now we are coming out of a pandemic situation and almost 2 years, and people have not been traveling to other countries very often. But suddenly, when the countries are open, you might see a customer is going to China and doing a huge ticket of huge value transaction. It could be a genuine transaction also, but your system needs to have a facility to capture whether it's a genuine transaction or a non-genuine transaction.
yes, previously you worked with HSBC. You said that I think you do have a more experience about this, because most of the bank they have monitored each and every transaction 24 within the 24 hours, right?
Yes. No, it should be nowadays. It should be not within 24 hours. It should be at the same time.
At the same time.
At the same time, because the level of in the customer transaction now, if you do a mobile app transfer in Sri Lanka, it'll go within 3 seconds.
Yeah.
But if you capture it after 24 hours or within 24 hours, you might not be able to get the money. So that's why, like I mentioned, you need to have that while you create facilities to make that transaction happen within 3 seconds. Same time, within that 3 seconds, you should be able to identify whether this is a authenticated or a non-fraudster activity.
Yeah, one thing I had your questions. I need to get some information from you, because most of the countries that they are using auto dialer, maybe the to contact the customer. But when it comes to the Sri Lanka, we cannot implement a system in our banking sector. Even the e-commerce has grown, and even we are in a digital era, we cannot implement that system. Why is that, sir? So is there any idea? What is your point of view?
It's like this. Now, e-dialer is a tool to, I would say, it's a tool to verify the information, right? But risk management is a different thing. So if you identify this this transaction is unusual, or this transaction is with a high risk country, then it should give an alarm to the risk management team, and the action for that could be e-calling facility. But I'm not too sure, but I know for a fact that especially the experience that I have is with the one bank. If they triggered, if there's something happening in the transaction, there's one suspicious activity in the transaction log, it is immediately alarmed to their call center, and call center do a verification of the customer. And that has actually happened to me also when I was in an overseas country, and I was trying to do a bit of a high value transaction. And even before that transaction got processed, I got a call from the bank, and they actually wanted to verify the details. The e-calling facility, but system itself dialing a call, I'm not too sure whether it's available in the country.
Yeah, excuse me, sir. Now,
Yeah.
regarding that, normally in our online banking, so depend on that, one is mobile phone number, contact number,
Yes.
then NIC number, then email. So far, how we CDD, how we identify that customer, because those normally the contact number may be will change.
Okay, when it comes to digital banking customers, what you mentioned is the mobile number and email addresses. But when you are enrolling such customers to digital banking platforms, so you do KYCs, know your customers. So you need to have some sort of a sense, saying, okay, his occupation is let's say for an example, his occupation is a taxi driver, and his monthly earnings are about 100,000 per month. And suddenly, after about 2-3 months, you see his account is getting large deposits, and he's using his mobile banking apps to do large value transfers. So that's why I mentioned the risk team, the risk management tool should have a capacity to identify such algorithms. So he has been using the mobile app and the account for low value transaction, and suddenly you see a enormous level of large value transactions are happening. So when it comes to digital banking and digital banking transactions, humans actually cannot do that. So the system itself should be built in order to identify such algorithms. Hope I gave you an answer to your questions.
Yeah, to that question, sir, but when it comes to the verification, rather than that Srishan asked that email and name and the NIC, we asked that last amount which you have done, which you have deposit, and so many of questions. But I'm not clear about that e-verification, because how to verify? Because is it all the question are insert to that particular
So you can do some second degree level of authentications, like when you do a KYC, for an example, you get your mother's maiden name, your father's maiden name, and your birth certificate. And then you do a KYC. So you can do some second degree level of authentications, like when you do a KYC, for an example, you get your mother's maiden name, your father's maiden name, and your birth certificate. So you can do some second degree level of authentications, like when you do a KYC, you get your mother's maiden name,
Yeah.
and your last transaction details and cross level informations like whether he may be a deposit customer, whether he has any credit card facilities or the last credit card transactions. Likewise, you can have some verification questions like basic level of verifications and second degree level of verifications and reverse psychological verifications. So these are the tools that can be, or rather the information that can be used to verify a customer. And once you do that, I'm not saying your risk levels are down to zero. There can be another percentage of risk level happening, but at least you are covered up to a certain level.
Yeah, I do have a experience with one of my customer. They said they claiming that he has not done a transaction with regard to the internet misusing. But when we go through this record, that particular mobile company has confirmed that they have sent OTP as well. But he said he didn't do that. But unfortunately, we don't know what has happened end to end. But we do not have much information to prove that whether he has done or not. Unfortunately, we have to revoke our things and we have to give it back to him. So that's what I'm asking, that how it verification process took place in the market to mitigate that process, because what you said is correct, because within minimum second you will be kicked out of the game. Is that happen?
It's like this. So now you can't have 100% risk mitigations level, because no way it can be done, because there is people are evolving with technologies, people are changing their behaviors to identify even a single little loophole to do such activities. So at least if you have certain level of AML and risk level covered from a bank's point of view and from a customer's point of view, you are safe. But there'll be always 1 to 2% of such incidents happening in the market, and it could be a genuine complaint, or it could be another way of we have seen many customers say, "I'm transaction and I have seen a lot of people doing that. My card withdraw but I have not done." But when you go into details and check all the CCTV cameras, maybe his immediate family members or close relatives have done such transactions.
Wife or children.
Yes, there can be incidents like that. So,
yes, I have come across same.
So
Right.
that means initially that's a one-time task by our manual work. No.
sorry, I didn't hear you properly.
That is initially we need to do that task.
Your line is breaking up. I can't hear you clearly.
I think Srishan has lost.
Yes, okay. Let's move on to the next one. So the other important factor is screening and monitoring for PEPs, our favorite people on the country, the politically exposed persons. They are the, I would say, most vulnerable people to look after, because this segment, the entire world has identified this segment of people are very they are very connected to most of the fraudster activities happening around the world. So this is a I would say big topic to talk about. But when it comes to politically exposed persons, we need to have much better screening and monitoring processes. And continue on, like you asked earlier, what are the measures that we can take in terms of risk mitigation when adding customers to the digital platforms. So you have, when we are developing certain technologies in digital forms, we can't have manual processes for screening and monitoring, like having your signature verifications, or asking people to come to a branch and verifying your email address. So we need to look at what are the new ways of doing the verification process. So these are the few new ones. Digital identifications. The number one in digital identification is the biometric technology, like the fingerprint, Face ID, and online security platforms for data storage and information. So your fingerprint is unique to you. Unless they can take your finger and go and use your fingerprints, no one can take down your fingerprints, or rather your Face ID. So these are the new technologies, and I must say, there's one reason that we have to be very proud of. Sri Lanka is the first country to use Face ID recognition in the world, even though there are many fintechs organizers. Now we think that the China is the world's largest innovator in the technology industry, but Sri Lankans have actually identified that opportunity in the market, and I think we have the patent for it. So these are the new ways of customer authentication when it comes to digital world. And AI is the artificial intelligence that is the key foundation for data and fraudster monitoring activities. And especially like when the digital transactions are happening, if you look at Sri Lanka at the moment, every second there is a digital transaction happening. And if you are to have humans to monitor such activities, it is nearly impossible. You cannot do that, because I can't remember the exact number. If you look at per second, there is about more than 100 or 200 odd transactions happening in Sri Lanka itself, digital transactions. Just imagine how many people we need to monitor such activities. If you have to do it with humans, it cannot be done. So that's why AI is very important. When that 3 seconds we spoke, so AI should be able to identify whether it's a authenticated transaction or a suspicious activity. So using AI to data collections and analysis, especially during customer due diligence, is very important. So banks must take new approaches to bring down these digital identification technologies, AIs, into the banking system. Otherwise, the survival is going to be a question within the next few years. And cloud computing. So cloud computing is very important. Now, all of you may experience that when we are opening accounts, most of us have done it in paper-based. So your documents are, your identifications, your signatures, everything is on a paper base, and they have sent it to either central location, and from there then it must have sent into sent it for archiving purposes. But when it comes to digital onboarding, you simply don't have to do that. So if you are opening accounts, you can take pictures from your mobile, you can do it from your mobile itself, and you can show a proof of your identification on mobile, and where they can capture your face recognitions, thumb recognitions, and store those data in clouds. And whenever there is some activities happening, especially transactional activities happening, these information can be cross-checked. So it is happening at the moment in world. So within that 3 seconds, AI can actually capture whether is this the same person at the time of account opening who gave a picture of himself, by using his mobile camera and trying to log into the mobile app after a few days, is it the same person? If not, then it can detect. Likewise, these new technologies, new ways of thinking, and new ways of adding securities are very important. And especially cloud computing is very important because you can't retrieve data after 2-3 days. So it has to happen within the 3 seconds. So it's very important that banks must take actions to move into cloud computing. And the other thing is, if banks are trying to storage within themselves, cost is so high. That's why the Amazons and Google, all these Dell, they are selling storages online, cloud storages, and they have become a multi-billion business. I would say. Now we as Sri Lankans, these are the industries that we haven't looked at in terms of bringing revenues to the country. So our IT sector is evolving. Our IT sector is, I would say, great. We are bringing in new technologies. In the same time, we should always look at things like cloud computing, cloud service providing, because these are the revenue generators for the next few years. We can't be a country who's exporting tea, rubber, and coconut for the next 100 years. So we need to look at industries like this. And when you have such technologies built in within the country, the investment, the large level investments, and our banking sector will grow from, I would say, 20 to 100 within a few years, because the country, the inflows of money and everything will come into the country. So these are the areas that you as young bankers, the technology, I would say the technocrats, has to identify these opportunities and make some changes in order to create a major impact to the economy. And the other one is blockchain. Blockchain is a big topic, so I'm not going to talk much about in this forum. If you want, we can have another session on blockchain. And this is something that I would ask you all to go and do some research on blockchain, because I would say within the next 3 to 5 years, blockchain will change the way of consumers are banking with banks. Cryptocurrency is the most, it could be the most used currency in the world within the next 3 to 5. So I would ask all of you to go and do some research on blockchains and cryptocurrencies and get ready, because you and I will never know our what should be the level of skills that we may have to have if we are to sustain in the banking industry after 3-4 years. So this is my assignment to you all. There are enough and more research papers and ideas being shared online. So go and do some research on blockchains. Right. Any questions about digital banking, AML, and the measures that measurements, before moving to our next interesting topic? Anyone with a question? So anyone wants to get any idea? Right. Since there is no, I'll move into our next one. So, okay. This is my favorite part. Okay. What we spoke about up to now is technology developments, how we should develop technologies, what are the areas that we need to look out. But this is where certain research industries, research institutes have identified what's going to happen in 2022 and beyond. And I would say research and the analytics which have done about 2 years ago was completely different to what is shown in the new technology trends for 2022, because with the impact of COVID, entire game was changed. Then the world started working completely different from what it used to be. So some people never predicted the coronavirus to hit like this, and their predictions were so wrong. That's why I said your fantastic technology which you have built yesterday, which you are using today, will not be usable tomorrow. So therefore, there is no point looking at what's going to happen in the 2030, because we actually cannot predict, especially in the digital world. So it's good to predict what's going to happen in the 2022 and adjust accordingly. The importance of developing and deploying new digital services, building new business models, and transforming from product-centric to a customer-centric culture should be the focus for all banks and credit unions going forward. What does it mean is, now I'm sure we are all, especially our sales teams, the frontliners, I don't think that they are selling or rather customer-centric solutions to the consumer. Okay, we say, okay, we have the fantastic saving product with the highest interest rate in the market, so we'll give you a free debit card and mobile banking facilities to do fund transfers, all sort of stuff. I think that is what the bankers are selling at the moment. It is going to change. It has already changed, I would say. Now people doesn't want, I mean, if you talk to younger generations, they are not cared about how much the interest rate is they are going to earn and what's the free debit card going to be. What they want is the accessible to their funds. How fast I can access, how fast I'm going to get, and whether I get the correct information, whether I get the information at the time I want it. So there is a norm called what I want, why, when I want it, and how I want it. So if bankers can identify that, address to that need, what I want, how I want, and when I want it, then you are up in the game. Otherwise, you will be out of the market very soon. And like I mentioned, these initiatives cannot be long term. So we can't have a business plan for the next 10 years, especially in the digital banking, because digital is evolving at a speed, like it is overtaking everything in what we do. So your digital speed and scale is, there's a term called exponential growth. So digital is grown at an exponential rate, and we should always have our plans adjusted to that scale and speed. And if you look at the next few years, the competition will be won by the technology enabler. What does it mean is, to become future ready, financial institutions will need to deploy modern technologies to support agility, efficiency, security, and innovation. Your traditional ways of doing product-centric offerings, or your ways of, okay, we have the largest number of branches in the country, largest number of ATMs in the market, will be nothing but a zero communication material in the future. But if you are future ready, like, okay, say, if you want a loan in 5 minutes, okay, we have the solution. Log into our app, say you need a loan and you will be getting it in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Yes, then that's a future ready innovation and efficiencies. Some if the technologies that are using in the banking industry is I would say fantastic. Sri Lanka is a perfect example where some countries are still taking more time, more than 5-10 minutes or 1 hour to do a fund transfer. But with our country, within 3 seconds, your funds are being transferred. So these are efficiency developers and security, very important. If you have a bad experience with a bank and your money is not being credited as promised within 3 seconds and it takes about 7 to 10 days to retrieve money, then you are done. The customers will not stick into your app again. They will move into another solutions with other better solutions. So innovation, and you can't have the same features with your services every day. And another key important is you have to be digital. You must focus more on digital customer experiences. Now those days when the branches are being built, you have a special customer waiting area. There is a specific place for ATMs and CDMs. There's a special other dedicated area for cash counters. But when it comes to digital, it's very important. So we'll talk about customer experience in a few other slides later. It is very important.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir, because when it comes to, you said that we can give you, if I want to get a loan from within 5 minutes, as per the new technology, we can do. But when it comes with loans, because we do have a field that promissory note. But when it comes to the promissory note, how we give, because when it comes to the recovery stage, we do have a, how do we prove that the customer can challenge, okay, this is not signed by me, this is something else, and
that's where AI is going to support us. When you are doing business in digital space, AI will play a bigger role now. If let's say somebody who's doing 50,000 worth of transaction on a regular basis and asking for 50 million loan will be a question. But if he's asking about a 10,000 loan, and AI can actually help to say, okay, you can have credit rating scorings in the AI system. Say it can trace back your last 6 months transactions within few seconds and say, okay, he has been depositing 50,000 worth of money every on a monthly basis, and he has been using only 40,000, 45,000 to 30,000 for their transaction, and he's using at supermarkets to buy goods using his cards, and he has been transferring, he has been paying his electricity and telco bills using the mobile app. So AI can actually identify such activities, and once a customer requests for these are not large ticket value loans, but depending on your transaction patterns, depending on your transaction behaviors, AI can actually help bank to identify better than the risk department or the credit evaluation department. Okay, this customers, you can fulfill 70% of his requirement, and this is the repayment amount which he can pay it in either 12 installment or 24 installments. And AI can actually give that alternative option to the customer within that app within actually few seconds. There are few apps that I know who are doing this level of innovations to the customer. And you don't need any collaterals or anything, because looking at your past experiences, AI will definitely tell you whether it can be done or not. It doesn't mean that AI will always tell you, okay, you give the 5,000 loan or the 50,000 loan to this customer, but it will give you the right level of information to either pass the loan to the customer or not. Hope you understood.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Right.
I got the point. Thank you.
And okay, this is a. Can someone tell me, now we spoke about the technology, but what would be the challenges in terms of banks to face within the next few years?
We cannot stick on the normal lending depositing scenario. We have to move to fees and charges. We do have a same session previously prior to this, and with some key holders. They also telling us what they call in future bank cannot stick on their normal depositing lending scenario. We have to move to fees and charges market in order to establish in the market.
That is correct. And also the other challenge is this: unless bank invest on advanced technologies, whether you have the perfect product in the market or with the highest interest rate to the lowest interest rate on your loan products and fascinating offers on your cards. I mean, let's say you have the perfect product in the market, but unless you have the advanced technologies deployed in your systems, the banks will not survive. So this is actually shows percentage of responders whose firms faced challenges in adapting to these technologies. Okay, AI. 84% said they are facing challenges to deploy AIs. Cybersecurity, 65. Cloud computing, 65. Advanced analytics, 62. Robotic processes, automation, 56. These are the figures given by traditional banks, saying that they are having challenges to deploy these technologies in the banking industry on their current working environment, simply because either it could be a financial investment, or they don't have the right knowledge. But on the other side, there are some companies which has these AI already enabled, cybersecurity, cloud computing. If you look at Amazon Pay, they are a fantastic organization which has all these technologies built in. And what they simply do is they join up with a bank or a financial institution. They can transform these services to the entire world in a completely different format. So some now you must have seen the bankers are now there are advertisement being displayed on the TVs and other channels. Okay, we have the largest number of portfolio in the country, and we are in the banking the 11th consecutive to 10th consecutive in the Financial Global Times. So, but within the next few years, those banks, if they don't invest on technologies, they will not survive. You might see some banks like V Bank. For classic example is Paytm. Paytm actually came into the market simply to facilitate as a white label ATM provider. But today they are one of the largest organization in the country. They if you watch IPL, you can see the level of apps that are being advertised during the IPL matches. Paytm to education level. So everything you see is going digital. The bank also should have a clear understanding of where the world is moving right now and invest accordingly. Another challenge is finding the right talent, and this is very important to you and I, because all of us are working in the banking industry, and world is moving towards a completely different environment. So our previous, okay, I can say I have 15 years experience in the bank, but someone with completely different knowledge can come and replace me and my entire team with just one person. So these are the areas that that are growing, and talents that we'll need in the banking industry. So AI is still be the number one, because I would ask you to research on more on AI, because it's a very interesting subject, as well as data analytics. Do some research on these topics, where you will learn a lot of insights. You can understand customer behaviors, consumer. You can get into a customer shoes and see, okay, what am I going to do next? Likewise, cyber security, data science and data analytics, software development, cloud engineering, risk management and modeling. These are the new job opportunities that will create in the banking industry. I'm sorry to say, the credit evaluations. Now some banks have large number of people working in the credit evaluations. In future, there will not be a department called credit evaluations and risk management. But branch banking will is, even at the moment, it is going down. So when you are in the banking industry, these are the areas that you must look for new opportunities in the if you are to move up and go into the world. Because the other risk factor is the talent shouldn't be from the country itself. So maybe someone from Nigeria can work for a bank in Sri Lanka and service to a customer in Australia. So because it is virtual. So please keep in mind that these are the new areas that are the talent is now looking for. And if you have time, just go and check on the top jobs or LinkedIn. All these, the technology based job opportunities are creating at the moment. This is something that you all have to very carefully look into. Any questions? Right. Okay. Let's move into the other one. Now, I said the new trends that are happening in the banking industry for 2022. Number one is intelligent decisioning and communication. This is very important. So use of data, AI, and applied analytics to identify opportunities, facilitate innovation, refine decisions, and support contextual communication. Now, today, if you look at customers, they are very demanding, not because they are very arrogant or they want, they are not very friendly as our previous customers. Their level of interactions, and they are very, I would say they are very time poor. So if I do a transaction, if I pay a mobile bill using a mobile app, and I expect that money to go within 3 seconds, and if I don't see that money, okay, maybe I should have some opportunities to clarify what has happened. And I don't like to be on call center for 30 minutes to verify me and then put it into another sections to identify transaction level. Then your entire experience will go off. But a bank should also always look at using the data and also refining decisions to support contextual communications. So if I am using my authenticated apps to log in, then I don't need any more identifications or proper verifications. So likewise, this is very important. So AI and advanced analytics algorithms can illustrate what's happening across the organization, why it happened, and what will happen next. So when you have your information collected on cloud computing and you use AIs and analytical tools, it can give you some contextual ideas. Let's say, okay, for an example, you can have there are banks who have set it up limits on fund transfers, and on the back end side you need to have a certain level of limits enabled to facilitate these transactions. And what it's gonna happen is, let's say in SAFT you have allocated 50 million for one particular bank to do fund transfers. But during the month of 30 days of calendar, during a month, from 1st to the 20th, you see only 2 millions, 3 millions have been allocated, have been utilized to do fund transfer. But after the 23rd to the 30th, the last few days, your fund transfers are going from 50 million to close to 100 million. Then AI or the analytics tools can say, okay, during the first 20 days, you can allocate about 3 million and use that money elsewhere and for other purposes. And during the last couple of days in the month, you can put additional money to facilitate transactions. So likewise, if people are to do these things, it will take a lot of time and it will not provide accurate data. But these technologies can help what's happening in the organization and how it happened and why it happened and what's going to happen next. So it's very important to identify, do this intelligent decisioning and communication. And also it improves back-end office operations, reduce cost, save time, improve customer service, loyalty and profits. Guys, if you have any questions, just please do ask, because since I cannot see any of you, I don't know your response. So stop me at any time and ask. And other factors offer the most value-added features in terms of customers' needs and preferences. For an example, I would say, okay, I'm banking with a particular bank simply because I see that bank provides really good service on the credit card and their offerings. But that's the only interaction that I have with the bank. My primary bank would be a different bank. But what happens is when you enable AI and analytical tools, AI can actually identify what my spending patterns, what my income levels, and how much I use it on certain level of at certain merchants. So it can suggest me, okay, if you have you can apply for a personal loan facility at this rate, and likewise it can give you cross-sell opportunities, whereby banks can actually bring that primary account from that X bank to this bank by simply doing some analytics. So these are the new, and how does it happen is you can actually do that transaction within apps itself. So these are and also these should happen in real time. So I have list down all the features in the. Please go through them and do some research on intelligent decisioning and communication in the banking industry. And the next is expansion of open banking APIs. Open banking has become one of the major drivers of digital banking transformation, impacting technology and infrastructure investment, data modernization, and decentralization strategies, fintech partnerships, and even reskilling programs. What does this mean is now Sri Lanka is yet to go on the full open banking process. But when you have open banking, I think we spoke last time, you are interconnected. Customers has the ability to select what services that I want to use from X Bank, what product that I want to use from Y Bank, and what are the communications, how the communications level can be done with other banks. So when you are connected and grow as a one unit in the industry, your level of innovations, your level of the opportunities that industries to grow is much higher. And these will enable banks to the other institutions to learn from each other and create a better banking experience to the community. So open banking is something to look forward for within the next couple of years, and these are definitely will come into play. So when you are looking for a career in the banking industry, so keep in mind these developments. Once you are familiarized and knowledgeable in these areas, you can grow faster. That's my simple idea to you. And primary beneficiary of this will be the consumer. So end of the day, when we are doing something, we have to always know that customer is the king. That's the normal term. But today's world, customer is not the king. He is the consumer, right? Why I say he is not the customer or the consumer, we are in the service industry. So we have to always support what the consumer wants. Otherwise, he will take it from another place. So if you look at it from a customer point of view, customer is no longer in the banking industry. So we have to look at it from a consumer point of view. So all these efforts will definitely benefit the consumer, and banks should always make arrangements to satisfy that consumer needs. To prepare for the shift in the way banking will be done moving forward, bank must determine the most appropriate business model. The highlighted word most appropriate. So what this mean is now the current banking classification in Sri Lanka is licensed bank, specialized commercial banks, licensed commercial banks, specialized licensed bank, and financial institutions like that. But going forward, it will not be the case. So in the central bank or the other regulatory parties needs to identify a clear classification of how these banks are going to be. Now, emerging banks like Dialogue Finance and Free.me, for an example, or UPay, they will pick and choose what are the services that they want to give it to the customer, and based on that, they can have their operating model completely different to other banks. So therefore, as banks, we need to identify what the most appropriate business model that is going to work with the consumer, the target audience. That based on that, they can do product enhancements to service developments. this is actually we spoke last time, banking as a platform or banking as a service. So these are the two new classifications the banking industry is going to have within the next couple of years. Either bank should look forward to do banking as a platform or banking as a service. So platform means the banks will provide platforms to other fintech solutions to do general normal like the basic banking products, the lendings to deposits collections to things like that. But banking as a service, or like trade servicing to investment banking. So the bankers should identify, okay, what is the area that we are going to work in the next few years, and develop technologies and partnered up with fintech solutions to sell products in the future. And consumers are increasingly demanding relevant, timely, and personalized experience that can save time and money. So this is a very important point. So we may design products and services based on our experiences, based on some research reports and based on some market analysis, but what customers are looking for is relevant, timely, and personalized experience. I am myself and I want to be me. I don't want someone else's solutions to me. So if I'm working with a bank, so I want that bank to give me my personalized solutions. If that can be done, yes, I will stick to that bank, and I want it I want it at the time I want it. So let's say if I'm when I'm 25 and so 20 to 25, and at that time I may be needing a leasing facility to buy a vehicle, but I don't need a loan for my children's educations. Likewise, the solutions should be relevant, timely, and it has to have that personalized service levels to retain that customers. Number 3, the move to the cloud. So this is we actually spoke about earlier. So I'm not going to leverage much on this. Why I say is the highlighted points: need for capacity and speed. Banks should definitely go into clouds, because otherwise for one particular reason, if you want to retrieve information, so it has to happen at the real time. Otherwise, if it takes about 3-4 days to retrieve information, your consumer will move to another solution. And the result is customer insight, improved efficiencies. So these are the areas that will give you great advantage when you move into the cloud. Overacting organizational advantage. Because another risk that we as bankers might face is the capacity of human productivity. So if we are not up to the level of our skills are not up to the standards or knowledge in order to survive the future customers, we will not have a jobs the survival in the next 5 to 10 years. So please do keep in that mind. So drive innovation and competitive positions. These are only areas that will drive banking industry in the future. Number 4, intelligent process automation. This is what we spoke at now. According to McKinsey, a research agency, they say half of all existing work activities could be automated in the next few decades, as next level process automation and virtualization become more commonplace. By 2025, more than 50 billion devices will be connected to the Internet of Things, IoT. So I will talk about IoT in a later. This says more than 50 billion devices. 50 billion devices means, there's only at the moment almost 8 billion population in the world, but we are talking about 50 billion devices. That is about more than 6 times the population. What does it really mean? You may be using a mobile, you may be using a laptop or a tablet or a PC. So all these will be connected to internet, and these devices, the way you interact with these devices will definitely change the way you live within the next 5 years. So therefore, Internet of Things is the next big thing, and robotic process automation, RP, and digital process automation. So, like I mentioned, our jobs are at risk. Doesn't mean that we are going to lose the job. It has to be our processors, our day-to-day jobs will be taken down by the robotics and the digital process automations. So we have to upskill our game. So we have to improve our level of skill. Even though there are millions of billions of machines, the most important thing is the man behind the machine. So if the man behind machine is not up to the standard of the machine, then definitely the machine will take over. But we should always challenge with the machine. Okay, we have created you, and you are not better than us, and we are up to the game. So robotic process automation, RPA and DPA, will continue to grow at a rapid pace. So watch out for these things. More than ever, the banks and the credit unions use digital customer experience that can be delivered without a digital perspective. So the banking industry is the first level of interaction, or the first office will be the connected device. So customer digital onboarding, new account opening, all these will done at not at branch level. It will be done at digital level. So going forward, people who are working in the branch, you all can think, okay, we are going to have a good time in the branch, but sooner you will probably be notified, okay, we are going to close down the branch. So better to be aware of what's going to happen. Guys, are you all there? Any questions? Right, okay, let me quickly go. Intelligent automation, this is another point. So I will quickly touch on the other point. IOE, this is IOE, driving to the next big evolution in banking. So 1998 to 2002, it was e-banking, and from 2003 to 2008, it was multi-channel integrations, like all these web-based account or things like that. And digital banking 3.0 from 2009 to 2014 is the omni-channels. Seamless experience, full function, smartphone apps, cloud, internet and hybrids, big data and analytics. But from 2015 now onwards, it is Internet of Everything. Digital bank, digital branches, rich cross channels, collaborations, and omni-channels. So just Google through this about IOE, because if you are upskilling your game to survive in the banking industry, you need to know about IOE. And number 5, from embedded banking to embedded finance. So we spoke last time whether it's going to be banks or banking. The simple answer is there is not going to be banks. They are going to be banking. So when it comes to digital space, it's not about the bank. Commercial bank app, HSBC app, it's not going to be relevant. Whatever the banks who are giving embedded financial services will survive in the industry. And the other important factor is these embedded financial inclusivity will not come only from the banking industry. It can come from any industry, from telco to the big retailers to, we don't know, even it can come from a hospital even. The technology is that you can't really have an answer. So embedded finance is the new banking term. So there is not going to be banks. So watch out for these areas. How it can give you better opportunities in the and increase focus on cybersecurity. So we spoke about cybersecurity. So everything you do, you have to keep in mind that cybersecurity has to have a major role and major portion in every development that you do. So you can't take any slight risk on the cybersecurity, because once you are done with this, you are gone forever. So cyber threats, and especially it can come from inside or outside. So you have to watch out for your internal as well as external parties. And the number one key factor is protecting customer information. And other major trend happening in the cybersecurity is the elimination of password, which is I spoke about the biometrics to AI tools. So I'm sure nobody wants to remember hundreds of passwords, but when you have biometrics enabled, and people who have enabled are going to have a long journey. And also authenticate apps, Windows Hello, like these technologies will help institutions to gain that extra security. So these are the new trends that are going to happen within next 2 to 3 years. So keep in mind that everything you do, you have to have a clear focus on what the customer is, your future customer is going to be. You may think that, okay, people who are working at the moment, who are earning a salary of 50,000 to 100,000, doctors to lawyers to all these will be your customers. No, your future customers are even can be a 5-year-old kid. So they are the ones who are coming into the market within the next 5 to 10 years. So unless you are ready to serve them, they will move away. Even they can bank with another bank overseas, right? And another important point that I want to talk about is, can someone tell me what design thinking is? Anyone wants to comment on this?
It is equal to lateral thinking.
No, design thinking is not lateral thinking actually. So we spoke about technologies being built using different platforms. So all these are, you can have all these ideas and everything put in place, but when it comes to implementation, this is the most important topic, design thinking. When you are doing something, when your novel ideas or everything that you do is based on how you are going to put it out into the market, how you're going to present it to the customer. So design thinking is when you are trying to do something new, you have to look at a 360-degree view in everything you do. So if I elaborate more on that, emphasize means learn about the audience. So you need to have a clear understanding of what your audience is. So you can't build technologies for everyone. You need to clearly identify and the define means sharpen key questions and ideate and brainstorm and create solutions. Prototypes, you build representations or more like you build prototypes to test the market and test ideas and gain user feedback. So go and do some research on design thinking, because this is a wonderful subject to learn, and you can go crazy in this subject. So I'll give you a classic example. So when we developed mobile banking apps, so we are looking at some we are looking at some case studies. Now, for an example, let's say a mother who is not working, who's working from home, and a young mother actually. He may be, or she may be, if you look at her day-to-day routine, she doesn't have time to go and do all her banking stuff at the I would say at the bank premises. When we are developing a solution, we need to look at her journey, what should be. So there's a clear norm in the industry saying when you are designing something, you have to always, especially in the mobile app industry, you will have to design it to to support a mother who's breastfeeding a kid, and at the same time using the app with one hand and one thumb. So what does it mean is every time you position your button, your app journeys, so it should have that easiness. And the Sri Lankan local version of it is, you are developing an app or something, or ඒක හදන්න ඕනේ drive කරන ගමන් වාහනේ මේ අදින ගමන් ෆෝන් එක use කරන්න පුළුවන් app එකක් විදියට. I'm not saying that is the don't do it, but අර ඒක ලංකාවේ විදියට localize කරලා හදලා තියෙන්නේ. කියන්නේ අපේ ලංකාවේ මිනිස්සු සෑහෙන ප්‍රමාණයක් වාහනේ එලවන ගමන් ෆෝන් එක පාවිච්චි කරනවානේ. අන්න ඒ mentality එක ඒ psychology එක තමයි අපි ඇත්තටම ඔලුවට ගන්න ඕනේ. අපි කොහොමද මිනිස්සෙක් එයාගේ ඒ බටන් එක පවා අපි ප්‍රෙස් කරන්න තියෙන හැම තැනම ඒ පොසිෂන් වෙන විදිහට හදන්න කියන එක. ඒක තමයි ඩිසයින් තින්කින් ප්‍රොසෙස් එක. කියන්නේ මේ ඩිසයින් තින්කින් ප්‍රොසෙස් කියන මේ ෆිලොසොෆි එක නැත්නම් මේ අයිඩියොලොජි එක ඔයාට ඕන තැනකට ඇප්ලයි කරන්න පුළුවන්. It can apply to your if you are building a house, or if you are doing something creative. It doesn't have to be in digital space itself, but everything you do is a design thinking process. So go and do some research on design thinking, and I'm sure you will go crazy in this. And other important factor is the UI UX part. So after you do design thinking, there comes the UI UX. What does it mean is user interface and user experience. So your left side of the brain is basically designed to do user interface, and your right side of the brain is to basically designed to do user experience. So please go and do some research on these two topics, because these will definitely help you to grow your banking career and in everything what you do in your life, to create a better person in you. And I'm going to leave these two topics for you to go and do some research, because these are topics that we cannot speak about in 5 or 10 minutes. It's always good to do some self-research on these subjects. And as I mentioned at previous instances, go and do research, and you will learn much more. You will have a better opportunities coming along with your way. Any questions, guys? Since we are coming into a end of the session.
So what kind of sir, excuse?
Yeah, I can hear you.
So what kind of assignments you plan to do give to us?
It's like this, Shishan. Now, in these modules, there's no clear assignments that I can give it to you, but always do some research on your own to see the technology developments, especially the design thinking part, and UI UX part, and put yourself in the customer's shoe, and to see how best you can serve the need of a customer, especially in a growing industry like this. So your assignment will be based, most probably will be based on a case studies. You will be given a scenarios and how you're going to address it in such ways. Because in this subject, there's no theories to talk about. Any other questions, guys?
Yeah, this is not about the question from you. So you need to get on your career and how you gonna, that you said you need to you're offering to us to check that UX, UI, bank, in cryptocurrency. Likewise, you ask me to check that. You go and check that, no?
Yeah.
So when it comes with your career, how do you enter the banking industry, and how you gonna apply those into your career, sir?
Well, it's a very good question, and thank you for asking that question, Prabhas. Now, if you look at, I find myself actually lucky in terms of one thing, because when I came into the industry, that's where actually the digital banking revolution started. Especially from with the launch of internet and mobile. So I actually started growing up with those trends, and luckily, when like I mentioned in the previous session also, I grew up and I had the chance to always work with this industry. My first appointment was to do with alternative channel management. Then I moved into the card industry. It taught me a lot of insights and how to analyze consumer behaviors, and based on that do product developments. And later on, after 2013 to 15, after 2015 onwards, when the digital revolution came into the play, I moved into the digital banking side. We started developing mobile apps to internet banking solutions and identified new technology trends. And even at the beginning of this today's session, like I mentioned, why this is my favorite point is, when you are in the industry which is evolving and which has a rapid future growth, it is like taking drugs. I like to put it in that way, because you are always eager to look out for what is going to happen next. What would be our customer or the consumers need going to be tomorrow. So based on that, you can prototype things, you can generate some ideas, you can put them into practice. And it's not about whether you are doing the right thing always. You can always try out new things. So it's very personally for me, it's very interesting and I really like it. And that's where we can build new solutions to the world. And that's how people like Steve Jobs have emerged from a very grassroots level to a global phenomenon. And if you look at Elon Musk and people like Jeff Bezos, they have created the new I would say it's not new actually. They have created a different phenomenon in the industry. So if you look at the banking industry, I would say the last few points that I spoke about, I'm actually going to use all the experiences that knowledges that I've gained to build something new for the economy, new for the world actually. If I can do that, and so it's about being connected with each other. Thereby, if you look at Sri Lanka, we have a major dollar crisis at the moment. We can't find solutions by exporting tea, rubber, and all these garments to the world, because that's not going to help our cause. But if we as teams, our young generations, our technocrats to our industry, if we can get together and build some fascinating technologies, then we can actually do something greater. So if you all don't know, some of the Sri Lankan innovative institutions, especially in the technical field, they have gone multinational levels. London Stock Exchange is using a Sri Lankan system, if you don't know that. And the best part is Indian Central Bank is using a Sri Lankan software. So digital world is really interesting, and I see what we spoke about might not be relevant tomorrow, but we need to always have a clear perspective of what's going to happen. So we need to be watchful. That's what I think will be very important.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions? I think because this will be the last session that I'm going to be engaged with you all, and it's I would say it's a completely new experience for me also to do some online teachings to you all, and at the same time I would prefer still to be connected with each other, even at a physical level. Then our interactions will be much more higher. But the world is changing. We have to move along with that. So if there's any questions or anything that you all want to discuss, you can reach out to me on any form. You can call me, email me, WhatsApp me, or you can contact me through Instagram, Facebook. Use the technologies or whatever is applicable to you. And only thing that I ask you to do is be watch out for the future developments. At the same time, do some creative innovations, and then do some good to the society. End of the day, whatever we spoke, we are talking about technology development, but end of the day, the man behind the machine is much important than everything else. So what we are doing is, everything we do is for the betterment of the humanitarian. So that's, keep in mind that, and wish you all the very best in your other lessons and in your banking careers and everything you do in your life. Hope to see you all soon.
Excuse, sir, can we have your contact number?
Yeah, it's 0767 77 2621. Sorry, I didn't mention my my email address is indica.edu@gmail.com. Slide. Anything else? Oh, and one more thing, yes, I would like to get your feedback on how the last two sessions, this last session and this one. That will be very important for me.
Yes, sir. You had done a great, and you had we do have a most important session from you, but maybe we are not the best student of you, but we got a lot.
I don't agree with that, because everyone is a student, and there's no right or wrong or anything that you ask. It's all about learning. So that's why even at the beginning I said, please do interact with me, even ask crazy questions. That's perfectly fine. some of the great products have innovated through crazy ideas.
Crazy ideas, yes, and yeah,
You have to be crazy.
yeah, I had to be crazy. Yeah, I agree with
I
you.
am a firm believer of that, and people who have been working with me and people who know me well, they know that how crazy I am. So have that craziness in your mind. It's perfectly all right.
Yeah, if you are not looking at in an incident in a different way, you cannot get the more solution, and you are stuck with the same frame. So I agreed with you, and you have done great things to us, and we got more information and more things. And one thing I wanted to ask from you, that you said that we do have in what they call at the transferring verge of paperless banking and what you call that API, AIA, and do you know about that? How IBSL act on that? I mean, like this session, and they will provide us new.
To be very honest with you, I don't have an idea of how IBSL is going to react to this. But one thing I can surely say is, jobs are not going to be loose. Okay? There will be always new opportunities created around the banking industry. Don't have any idea or any scarcity of that you are going to lose your job. What's going to happen is the way you work and your skill levels are going to be changed. And the challenges that you all have is that you have to be ready to face that challenge. Unless you are ready to face that challenge, you will be eliminated from the market. So that's why I said your jobs are being challenged. That's
Yes, sir. Got point. So thank you, Mr. Indika. So we had a nice session with you, and I wish you on the very best for your career, sir.
thank you everyone, and yes, let's see you all soon. Thank you very much, and wish you all the best to everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
sir.
sir. Great session.
Good session.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you, sir. We got many points from your sessions.